There are some minds in history that shine quietly, not through loud ambition, but through a deep and gentle imagination. Nikola Tesla was one of them, a man who lived more in the world of ideas than in the world around him, and whose thoughts glowed like distant constellations few others could see. His life was not defined by noise or fame, but by stillness, vision, and a kind of inner light that guided him through every moment. Tonight we travel softly through that life, following the quiet footsteps of a dreamer who imagined the future long before the world was ready for it. Tesla's story begins not in laboratories or cities, but in the calm countryside of 19th century Europe, where storms rolled across open fields, and a young boy watched lightning with wide, thoughtful eyes. From those early nights of wonder to the great halls of invention that would come years later, his journey remained shaped by the same quiet curiosity. He observed the world gently, noticing patterns others overlooked, and let his imagination fill the spaces between them. His mind moved like electricity itself, silent, invisible, and full of possibility. As you settle in, you may find your breathing begin to slow, your thoughts softening into the background. This documentary is not meant to excite or overwhelm, but to guide you into rest as we walk peacefully through a life filled with inspiration, solitude, and extraordinary creativity. There is no rush here, just a gentle unfolding of moments, one after another, like pages turning softly in a book. So take a moment to relax your shoulders, let the tension drift away, and allow the quiet story of Nikola Tesla to carry you towards sleep. A story of storms and dreams, of quiet brilliance, and of a gentle mind that changed the world in ways he would never fully see. Nikola Tesla's story begins far from the roaring cities he would one day illuminate, in a quiet village nestled between mountains and murmuring rivers. The landscape of Smiljan was simple and unhurried, shaped by fields, the soft creak of wooden carts, and the distant rhythm of church bells. It was here, in a place untouched by the world he would eventually electrify, that a young boy first learned to pay attention to the invisible. Long before the experiments, long before the towers and coils, before the controversies and the isolation, there was only a child listening to wind, watching water flow, and feeling something deeper beneath the ordinary world around him. Even as an infant, Tesla seemed to sense that the universe spoke in quiet patterns few others noticed. He entered the world on a night unlike any other, a night that would become part of the whispers surrounding his life for decades. Thunder rolled across the horizon in great sheets of sound, rattling the small house where his mother labored, and lightning flashed so brightly that neighbors claimed the sky itself split open. Some said the storm was an omen, the kind that old villagers interpreted with both awe and caution. According to family lore, a midwife warned that a child born under such violent skies would be touched by danger, but Tesla's mother calmly corrected her. She believed the storm meant he would be a child of light. Whether truth or just a story told too often to ignore, the idea settled over his life like a prophecy waiting to be fulfilled. His mother, Juka, possessed a calm brilliance that could have reshaped the world had she ever been given the chance. She had never gone to school, yet she could recite entire books, word for word, and invent tools with a quiet ease that fascinated her son. Tesla would later say that whatever inventive spark he carried came from her, not from textbooks or universities, but from the way she shaped the world around her. She crafted household devices to make work easier, weaving solutions into her daily chores, never calling them inventions because she didn't see herself that way. To Tesla, she was the first true engineer he ever knew. Her hands taught him that imagination didn't have to be loud. It could be gentle, practical, and profoundly transformative. His father, Smiljan, was different. A priest with a booming voice and a mind trained for structure, ritual, and words. He wanted his son to follow in the same path, to step into the steady, respectable life of clergy. But even he recognized something unusual in the boy, who could envision machinery with a clarity that made him fall silent. Tesla would often sit near him during sermons, tracing invisible shapes in the air, imagining gears and currents while parishioners whispered their prayers. Milutin's discipline and eloquence would shape the young boy's mind in another way, giving him language powerful enough to hold the storms of his imagination. Between his parents, Tesla grew like a bridge between two worlds, one spiritual, one mechanical, and in that space, he quietly formed his sense of purpose. By the time he could walk confidently through the village paths, Tesla began to experience something strange, something he couldn't describe but couldn't ignore. Whenever he heard a phrase, or saw a scene, or felt a strong emotion, vivid images appeared before him, so sharp and bright they seemed almost real. A sentence could summon a landscape, a memory could reappear as though projected on a wall. These visions startled him at first, overwhelming his senses, but he eventually learned to treat them like tools. Where others saw nothing behind their eyelids, Tesla saw blueprints, structures, and entire devices unfolding in perfect, intricate motion. Some children imagined dragons or castles when they played. Tesla imagined electricity flowing through coils he had never touched, moving with precision he had never learned. He didn't yet understand what this ability meant, but it was the beginning of everything he would later create. As he grew older, Smiljan began to feel too small for the vast inner landscape forming inside him. He would lie in the tall grass, watching clouds drift above, and imagine machines soaring through the sky. He listened to the river and wondered why water moved the way it did, sensing a rhythm that felt almost mechanical. Animals fascinated him, too, not just in their behavior, but in the patterns of their movement. Every detail of nature seemed to speak a language only he was paying attention to, a silent code written in motion, sound, and energy. At night, when the household quieted and only the crickets remained, Tesla would stare into the dark and sense a world of invisible currents swirling beyond sight. Electricity was already shaping his mind long before he ever touched a generator. One early memory stayed with him his entire life, a simple moment when he rescued a fallen bird. While others saw nothing more than a creature too small to matter, Tesla saw the delicate workings of life itself. The bird trembled in his hands, fragile and trembling, its heartbeat a tiny drum. He watched its wings flutter weakly and wondered how such a creature could fly at all. What balance, what invisible force allowed something so light to conquer gravity? He realized even then that every movement, every motion was guided by forces hidden beneath the surface. That idea would eventually shape his understanding of electricity, resonance, and wireless transmission. But at this age, it was only a quiet curiosity, one that made the world feel deeper and more mysterious. In those early years, Tesla discovered another source of fascination: water wheels. Farmers near his village built simple devices that dipped into the stream, turning slowly as water pushed against their paddles. To most villagers, these wheels were just part of daily life, something they walked past without thought. But Tesla saw the elegance in their motion, the way the force of falling water translated into rotation. He spent hours studying them, asking questions no one could answer. Why did the wheel turn faster at some parts of the stream and slower at others? How much power did the flow carry? What if the wheel had more paddles or fewer? He began sketching improvements in the dirt, rearranging the paddles in different shapes, imagining wheels that could turn on their own. The first spark of his engineering spirit was already flickering. One afternoon he built a tiny turbine using nothing more than sticks, leaves, and a piece of bark he had hollowed out. He placed it in a narrow part of the stream where the water ran faster, and the little device spun with surprising speed. Watching it whirl, Tesla felt a sensation he would later experience again and again, a rush of quiet satisfaction, the calm certainty of seeing an idea become real. The turbine was small, insignificant in size, but to Tesla, it was proof that the world could be shaped by the mind. Standing beside that stream, he knew for the first time that invention was not a distant dream, but a path he could follow. His childhood wasn't without its shadows. Tesla often felt isolated, unable to explain the strange images and ideas that filled his thoughts. And when he tried, other children laughed or stared at him in confusion. He learned to speak carefully, offering only the simplest version of what he saw. At school, teachers admired his intelligence, but sometimes misinterpreted his curiosity as disobedience. He absorbed knowledge quickly, too quickly, and his mind drifted into deeper questions while others focused on simple lessons. Yet this inner world, despite its solitude, became his refuge. Every invention he would one day create began as a whisper in that hidden landscape. The rhythm of village life continued around him, steady and predictable. He performed chores, attended church, and helped his mother with small tasks. But even during ordinary moments, his imagination wandered. While sweeping the floor, he would analyze airflow and dust patterns, imagining devices that could move air without blades. While tending to animals, he would study the tension of ropes and gears of farm equipment, sensing the potential for improvement. Each task became a quiet lesson, a chance to understand the unseen forces shaping movement and energy. His world was a classroom without walls, and he was both student and explorer. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Tesla sat with his mother while she wove threads using a tool she had made herself. The soft click of the mechanism fascinated him. He examined its rhythm, noting how each part responded to the touch of her hand. He asked her how she knew how to build it, and she simply replied that necessity teaches the mind to see solutions. That answer stayed with him. It wasn't intelligence alone that shaped invention. It was awareness, patience, and the willingness to observe the world closely. In that quiet moment, Tesla understood the essence of creativity. Not force, but clarity. His father, noticing his growing fascination with mechanics, tried to gently guide him toward literature and theology instead. Milutin believed a life of faith offered stability, dignity, and structure. In the evenings, he would read to Tesla from classic works, hoping to steer his son toward words rather than wires. But Tesla absorbed these stories differently. Instead of imagining the characters, he saw the architecture of the worlds described, the layouts of ancient cities, the mechanisms of mythical machines, the way light might fall through marble halls. Even sacred stories sparked questions about energy, nature, and the design of the universe. His father's influence broadened his mind rather than restricting it. Tesla learned that imagination could live in both science and spirituality. The first time Tesla saw a demonstration of electricity, he was still very young, and the device was simple, a small static generator producing sparks when cranked. But the moment he saw the flash, brief, sharp, alive, something inside him awakened. Electricity didn't behave like fire or water or wind. It danced differently, leaping from one point to another like a living thread. He leaned closer, mesmerized by the glow, the crackle, the strange instinctive pull it held over him. In that instant, he felt a connection to something fundamental, a force that seemed to echo the inner visions he'd always carried. He didn't yet have the language to describe it, but he sensed that electricity would shape his life. As the years passed, Tesla's inner world expanded even further. He began to visualize complex mechanisms without drawing them, manipulating them in his mind with flawless precision. When other children were running barefoot through the fields, Tesla was constructing imaginary engines, adjusting parts, testing motions, and refining designs, all in complete silence. His mind became a workshop where ideas took form before he ever touched a tool. This gift, though isolating at times, allowed him to see possibilities far beyond the limits of his environment. The world outside remained simple and familiar, but the world inside him grew vast, electric, and full of potential. One night, Tesla lay awake listening to the rumble of a distant storm. Lightning flickered behind the clouds, casting brief flashes across his ceiling. As he watched the silent illumination, he imagined electricity not as a mere spectacle, but as a force that could be tamed and shaped. He pictured unseen lines stretching across the landscape, carrying light into every home. He imagined a world where darkness no longer dictated the rhythm of life. Though he couldn't explain it, he sensed that humanity stood on the edge of a transformation, and that he somehow belonged to that future. The storm outside wasn't frightening. It was a teacher. These early experiences, small, quiet, almost invisible to the people around him, were the foundation of Nikola Tesla's extraordinary mind. They planted the seeds of curiosity, sharpened his senses, and opened his imagination to the hidden workings of nature. His childhood didn't promise greatness. There were no grand laboratories, no experiments with wires sprawled across floors. There was only a boy observing the world with unusual intensity, collecting patterns that others overlooked. And yet, in those gentle years, the shape of his destiny was forming. Even the tragedies that touched his family played a silent role in shaping him. When Tesla's older brother Dane died in a riding accident, the household fell into deep grief. Dane had been gifted, brilliant even, and Tesla grew up in the shadow of a boy who was no longer alive. The loss carved a quiet melancholy into him, a sense that life was fragile and brilliance even more so. He withdrew further into his mind, seeking comfort in thoughts he could control when the world outside felt unpredictable. In the stillness of these moments, Tesla's imagination grew sharper, his inner visions more vivid. Sorrow, in its strange way, became another source of understanding. Night after night, as the village slept, Tesla watched the sky and imagined the secrets hidden beyond it. Stars felt like lamps hung just out of reach, each one burning with the same mysterious force he longed to understand. He wondered if light was a kind of message, a form of energy traveling through darkness without ever dimming. He pictured invisible waves swelling across space, carrying power through the ether. These were childish musings in appearance, but they were the earliest hints of the wireless dreams he would spend his life chasing. Even then, he sensed that the universe was not silent. It was humming. In time, Tesla's curiosity grew too large for the boundaries of his village. He needed books, tools, and experiences that Smiljan simply could not offer. He felt an inner pull, a quiet insistence that he was meant to explore, to learn, to search for something greater. His parents noticed this restlessness in him, the faraway look in his eyes, the long silences, the endless questions. There was something in him that could not be contained by routine or tradition. He was still very young, but the path ahead was already beginning to reveal itself. This was Nikola Tesla before the fame, before the conflicts, before the towering inventions, and the long nights in laboratories lit by blue sparks. He was not yet the man who would revolutionize the world. He was simply a boy shaped by storms, silence, and imagination. A boy who listened closely to the hidden forces of nature. And though he did not know it, those early years were guiding him toward a future where the invisible would finally become visible, and the world would feel the impact of a mind unlike any other. Here, on the quiet edge of his childhood, the journey was just beginning. As Nikola Tesla entered early adolescence, the world around him began to unfold in new and unfamiliar ways. His mind, already rich with inner visions, started to stretch beyond the quiet landscapes of Smiljan and into realms shaped by mathematics, physics, and the subtle mechanics of nature. The village school could offer only the basics, arithmetic, reading, and moral lessons, but Tesla consumed knowledge as though it were fuel for something larger growing inside him. He studied with a quiet intensity that puzzled teachers and classmates alike, not because he wanted praise or recognition, but because every concept opened another door in his imagination. Even in these early years, it was clear that learning wasn't just a task for Tesla, it was a kind of nourishment. His memory, already remarkable, became something extraordinary. He could read an entire page, close the book, and recall every sentence with perfect clarity. Words, numbers, diagrams, all of them lingered in his mind as though etched in light. This ability allowed him to move through subjects quickly, leaving teachers unsure how to challenge him. But Tesla didn't view his memory as a gift. To him, it was simply a natural part of how he understood the world, a tool that allowed him to transform information into vivid images that he could manipulate at will. When he learned about geometry, he didn't just solve problems, he visualized shapes rotating in space. When he read about astronomy, he imagined planets drifting through the dark like lanterns suspended by invisible threads. Despite his intellectual abilities, Tesla remained gentle and shy. He often avoided attention, preferring to listen rather than speak. His classmates found his quiet manner unusual, but not unfriendly. He didn't join in every game or conversation, yet he carried a calm presence that made others feel at ease around him. There was something serene and almost ethereal in the way he observed the world, as if he were always listening to some frequency they could not hear. Even as a boy, Tesla seemed older than his years, guided by an inner stillness that set him apart. But the world around him was not without its hardships. After the death of his older brother, a sadness lingered in the household, a quiet heaviness that touched every corner of the Tesla home. Nikola carried a guilt he could not fully articulate, feeling as though he lived in the shadow of a brilliance lost too soon. His parents, still grieving, grew more protective, watching him with a mixture of love and fear. They wanted him safe, guided, and grounded in a path that would not bring more pain. Yet Tesla's mind was already reaching toward possibilities beyond their understanding, and the tension between fear and potential created a subtle emotional distance he felt but couldn't bridge. In those years, Tesla found refuge in nature. He wandered through forests, listening to the rustle of leaves and memorizing the patterns of birds in flight. He watched streams cascade over stones, imagining the hidden energies within each drop of water. Nature became a quiet teacher, offering lessons in movement, balance, and rhythm. When he lay in the grass at night staring up at the stars, he felt a sense of connection that soothed the anxieties of his home life. The sky, vast and steady, made him feel that his ideas were not strange, but part of something larger and more harmonious. In this way, the natural world softened the loneliness that often accompanied his brilliant mind. As he grew older, Tesla began to develop small inventions, none of them grand, but each a hint of what would come. He crafted mechanical toys using scraps of metal and wood, building little devices that moved with surprising efficiency. When he showed them to adults, they smiled kindly, assuming such contraptions were the harmless amusements of a clever child. But Tesla felt something deeper stirring. These early creations were not mere toys. They were fragments of ideas forming long before he would articulate the principles behind them. Each device represented a question he wanted to solve. How can motion be sustained? What powers the world beneath its surface? Where does energy begin and where does it end? Education, however limited in his village, soon became a gateway to a wider world. His parents recognized that Tesla needed more than local schooling and arranged for him to attend a higher institution in a nearby town. Leaving Smiljan was difficult. He loved the landscapes that had shaped him, but he knew his ambitions required more than familiarity. The new school introduced him to subjects he had only read about in books, advanced mathematics, physics, and mechanics. Tesla excelled immediately, astonishing teachers with his ability to comprehend complex ideas in a fraction of the time it took others. His notebooks filled quickly, not with messy handwriting or rough sketches, but with detailed theories, equations, and meticulously imagined mechanisms. Though he was naturally reserved, Tesla formed a small circle of friends who admired his creativity and gentle temperament. They often gathered after classes, discussing ideas that stretched beyond their youth, sharing dreams about the future. Tesla's contributions were always thoughtful, but he rarely spoke about the more unusual aspects of his mind. He sensed that others would not understand the vivid clarity of his visions, and so he kept those details to himself. Instead, he shared only what felt necessary, offering glimpses of his ideas while preserving the deeper mysteries of his inner world. During these school years, Tesla developed an unusual passion that surprised even him: poetry. He found solace in the cadence of language, in the way words could evoke entire landscapes with subtle shifts in rhythm and tone. Writing poems became another form of invention, one free from calculations and diagrams. Through poetry, he expressed emotions he found difficult to articulate in conversation: grief, longing, wonder, and the quiet ache of searching for something he couldn't name. Poetry became a soft counterbalance to the precision of science, offering a space where thought and feeling could coexist. His family's financial situation was modest, and Tesla felt the weight of their sacrifices. He studied tirelessly, not just out of curiosity, but from a desire to honor their commitment to him. He knew that every coin spent on his education mattered, and this awareness fueled a sense of responsibility that shaped his work ethic. Late at night, long after his classmates had gone to bed, he remained awake with a candle burning low, solving problems, refining ideas, and pushing himself beyond exhaustion. Tesla discovered that he possessed an unusual endurance, able to work for long hours with minimal rest. This ability would later become both a strength and a burden. But for now, it felt like a necessary part of his path. It was during these years that Tesla first encountered the mysteries of electricity in a more structured form. His physics instructor demonstrated basic experiments with current, circuits, and induction, and Tesla watched with rapt attention. The spark of electricity, the way it leapt, the way it hummed, felt like an old friend returning. When the teacher explained alternating current and direct current, Tesla sensed that something essential was missing from the common understanding, though he couldn't yet express what it was. He felt that electricity was not merely a phenomenon to be controlled, but a language that needed translation. This intuition stayed with him, quietly shaping his thoughts as he continued to study. Despite his growing intellectual focus, Tesla remained sensitive to the emotions of those around him. He noticed when classmates struggled or when teachers seemed weary, and he offered help in ways that felt natural and sincere. His empathy created bonds that softened his eccentricities, allowing others to feel comfortable in his presence, even if they didn't fully understand his world. Tesla's kindness became one of his defining traits, a gentle balance to the intensity of his mind. Those who knew him during these years often remembered not just his brilliance, but the peaceful aura he carried, as if his presence itself offered a quiet reassurance. One of the most formative experiences of his youth occurred unexpectedly, while observing a simple phenomenon that most people would overlook. Tesla watched a blacksmith operating a large wheel driven by a belt attached to a watermill. The motion was uneven, causing the belt to slip occasionally. Tesla imagined a different method, one that didn't require constant physical contact between the parts. He envisioned a smooth rotation, created not by friction, but by an invisible force, an early intuitive glimpse of the principles of electromagnetic induction. Though the idea was still undefined, the concept took root in his mind, growing slowly like a seed waiting for the right conditions to bloom. As the years passed, Tesla's environment continued to shift. He moved from one school to another, each time advancing to higher levels of study. Each new place broadened his perspective, exposing him to different teachers, new ideas, and more complex fields of study. But every transition also brought emotional challenges. Tesla often felt like a traveler between worlds, half rooted in the quiet simplicity of his upbringing, half pulled toward a future filled with infinite possibility. This duality created moments of restlessness, as though he were living in two timelines at once, one grounded, one aspirational. The tension between these two selves became a core part of his identity. During his teenage years, Tesla developed a fascination with the concept of perpetual motion, a dream pursued by many inventors before him, though none had succeeded. Even at this young age, Tesla sensed that perpetual motion in the traditional sense was impossible, yet he felt that nature itself contained mechanisms that operated continuously without human intervention, rivers flowing endlessly, planets orbiting without rest, stars burning consistently for eons. He believed that if humans could understand these natural processes deeply enough, they might uncover principles that could revolutionize the world. This belief, though naive in form, contained the seeds of his lifelong exploration of energy, resonance, and wireless transmission. His health, however, was not always steady. Tesla often pushed himself to extremes, studying long hours with little sleep, sometimes to the point of collapse. He experienced fevers, bouts of exhaustion, and moments when his senses became overly sensitive, as though the world around him was too bright, too loud, too overwhelming. These episodes frightened him, yet they also heightened his awareness of the delicate balance between mind and body. Tesla learned that his abilities came with a price, and though he did not always pay attention to the warning signs, he recognized that brilliance alone was not enough. Discipline and self-care were also essential, though he struggled with the latter all his life. When Tesla left home for further education in a larger city, he felt both excitement and fear. The pace of life there was faster, the streets noisier, the expectations higher. Yet Tesla adapted quickly, immersing himself in studies and discovering a broader range of scientific disciplines. He encountered new theories, new technologies, and new ways of thinking that expanded his horizons. The laboratories, with their smell of oil and metal, felt like sanctuaries where he could finally explore ideas too complex for the small schools of his childhood. Tesla's world was widening, and with it, his sense of purpose deepened. One evening, while walking through the city after dusk, Tesla paused near a lamppost glowing faintly in the darkness. The warm halo of light fascinated him, not for its brightness, but for the principle behind it, the movement of current through a filament, creating heat that radiated outward. He imagined a world where light didn't rely on burning, heating, or wasting energy, a world where illumination could be summoned effortlessly from the air itself. Even in these early days, his thoughts drifted toward forms of energy that were clean, efficient, and accessible to all. The lamppost became more than a source of light. It became a symbol of a future he longed to create. Over time, Tesla's classmates began to realize that he possessed a level of focus and dedication unlike anything they had seen. While others studied to pass examinations, Tesla studied to understand the universe. He sought comprehension, not simply achievement. His teachers, impressed by his abilities, encouraged him to pursue advanced studies in engineering, believing he had the potential to become a great inventor. Tesla felt a quiet thrill at these possibilities, yet continued to carry the weight of uncertainty that had shadowed him since childhood. He still feared disappointing his parents, especially his father, whose dream of seeing his son enter the clergy remained strong. This tension reached a pivotal point when Tesla, after years of struggle, fell gravely ill from overwork and emotional strain. he spent weeks recovering, confined to his bed, drifting in and out of fevered dreams. During this time, he confronted his deepest fears, fears of failure, of inadequacy, of never becoming the person he sensed he was meant to be. Yet it was during one of these fragile nights that he made a decision that would shape the rest of his life. He resolved to pursue science with full devotion, no matter the cost. He promised himself that if he survived his illness, he would follow the path that his mind and spirit demanded, even if it led him into the unknown. His recovery became a turning point. Tesla emerged from his sickness with newfound clarity, a quiet conviction that guided him through the next stage of his journey. He returned to his studies with renewed determination, driven not by duty or expectation, but by a deep inner calling. His understanding of electricity grew sharper, his ability to visualize complex systems stronger. The visions that had once unsettled him now felt like whispers of guidance, illuminating possibilities others couldn't yet imagine. Little by little, Tesla began to feel the edges of his destiny taking shape. He sensed that his childhood curiosity, his grief, his studies, his illnesses, and his inner visions were all pieces of a larger pattern. He didn't know where the path would lead, but he felt certain that he was being guided toward something extraordinary, something that would reshape his life and the lives of countless others. And so, as Tesla stepped into the final years of his schooling, he carried with him not just knowledge, but an awakening. The boy from Smiljan, shaped by storms, silence, and invisible forces, was beginning to understand his place in the world. The quiet foundation of his early life had prepared him for the extraordinary path ahead, a journey that would take him across continents, through triumphs and heartbreak, into the heart of scientific revolution. His childhood was ending, but his destiny was only beginning. As Nikola Tesla entered early adolescence, the world around him began to unfold in new and unfamiliar ways. His mind, already rich with inner visions, started to stretch beyond the quiet landscapes of Smiljan and into realms shaped by mathematics, physics, and the subtle mechanics of nature. The village school could offer only the basics, arithmetic, reading, and moral lessons, but Tesla consumed knowledge as though it were fuel for something larger growing inside him. He studied with a quiet intensity that puzzled teachers and classmates alike, not because he wanted praise or recognition, but because every concept opened another door in his imagination. Even in these early years, it was clear that learning wasn't just a task for Tesla, it was a kind of nourishment. His memory, already remarkable, became something extraordinary. He could read an entire page, close the book, and recall every sentence with perfect clarity. Words, numbers, diagrams, all of them lingered in his mind as though etched in light. This ability allowed him to move through subjects quickly, leaving teachers unsure how to challenge him. But Tesla didn't view his memory as a gift. To him, it was simply a natural part of how he understood the world, a tool that allowed him to transform information into vivid images that he could manipulate at will. When he learned about geometry, he didn't just solve problems, he visualized shapes rotating in space. When he read about astronomy, he imagined planets drifting through the dark like lanterns suspended by invisible threads. Despite his intellectual abilities, Tesla remained gentle and shy. He often avoided attention, preferring to listen rather than speak. His classmates found his quiet manner unusual, but not unfriendly. He didn't join in every game or conversation, yet he carried a calm presence that made others feel at ease around him. There was something serene and almost ethereal in the way he observed the world, as if he were always listening to some frequency they could not hear. Even as a boy, Tesla seemed older than his years, guided by an inner stillness that set him apart. But the world around him was not without its hardships. After the death of his older brother, a sadness lingered in the household. a quiet heaviness that touched every corner of the Tesla home. Nikola carried a guilt he could not fully articulate, feeling as though he lived in the shadow of a brilliance lost too soon. His parents, still grieving, grew more protective, watching him with a mixture of love and fear. They wanted him safe, guided, and grounded in a path that would not bring more pain. Yet Tesla's mind was already reaching toward possibilities beyond their understanding, and the tension between fear and potential created a subtle emotional distance he felt, but couldn't bridge. In those years, Tesla found refuge in nature. He wandered through forests, listening to the rustle of leaves and memorizing the patterns of birds in flight. He watched streams cascade over stones, imagining the hidden energies within each drop of water. Nature became a quiet teacher, offering lessons in movement, balance, and rhythm. When he lay in the grass at night staring up at the stars, he felt a sense of connection that soothed the anxieties of his home life. The sky, vast and steady, made him feel that his ideas were not strange, but part of something larger and more harmonious. In this way, the natural world softened the loneliness that often accompanied his brilliant mind. As he grew older, Tesla began to develop small inventions, none of them grand, but each a hint of what would come. He crafted mechanical toys using scraps of metal and wood, building little devices that moved with surprising efficiency. When he showed them to adults, they smiled kindly, assuming such contraptions were the harmless amusements of a clever child. But Tesla felt something deeper stirring. These early creations were not mere toys. They were fragments of ideas forming long before he would articulate the principles behind them. Each device represented a question he wanted to solve. How can motion be sustained? What powers the world beneath its surface? Where does energy begin and where does it end? Education, however limited in his village, soon became a gateway to a wider world. His parents recognized that Tesla needed more than local schooling and arranged for him to attend a higher institution in a nearby town. Leaving Smiljan was difficult. He loved the landscapes that had shaped him, but he knew his ambitions required more than familiarity. The new school introduced him to subjects he had only read about in books: advanced mathematics, physics, and mechanics. Tesla excelled immediately, astonishing teachers with his ability to comprehend complex ideas in a fraction of the time it took others. His notebooks filled quickly, not with messy handwriting or rough sketches, but with detailed theories, equations, and meticulously imagined mechanisms. Though he was naturally reserved, Tesla formed a small circle of friends who admired his creativity and gentle temperament. They often gathered after classes, discussing ideas that stretched beyond their youth, sharing dreams about the future. Tesla's contributions were always thoughtful, but he rarely spoke about the more unusual aspects of his mind. He sensed that others would not understand the vivid clarity of his visions, and so he kept those details to himself. Instead, he shared only what felt necessary, offering glimpses of his ideas while preserving the deeper mysteries of his inner world. During these school years, Tesla developed an unusual passion that surprised even him: poetry. He found solace in the cadence of language, in the way words could evoke entire landscapes with subtle shifts in rhythm and tone. Writing poems became another form of invention, one free from calculations and diagrams. Through poetry, he expressed emotions he found difficult to articulate in conversation: grief, longing, wonder, and the quiet ache of searching for something he couldn't name. Poetry became a soft counterbalance to the precision of science, offering a space where thought and feeling could coexist. His family's financial situation was modest, and Tesla felt the weight of their sacrifices. He studied tirelessly, not just out of curiosity, but from a desire to honor their commitment to him. He knew that every coin spent on his education mattered, and this awareness fueled a sense of responsibility that shaped his work ethic. Late at night, long after his classmates had gone to bed, he remained awake with a candle burning low, solving problems, refining ideas, and pushing himself beyond exhaustion. Tesla discovered that he possessed an unusual endurance, able to work for long hours with minimal rest. This ability would later become both a strength and a burden. But for now, it felt like a necessary part of his path. It was during these years that Tesla first encountered the mysteries of electricity in a more structured form. His physics instructor demonstrated basic experiments with current, circuits, and induction, and Tesla watched with rapt attention. The spark of electricity, the way it leapt, the way it hummed, felt like an old friend returning. When the teacher explained alternating current and direct current, Tesla sensed that something essential was missing from the common understanding, though he couldn't yet express what it was. He felt that electricity was not merely a phenomenon to be controlled, but a language that needed translation. This intuition stayed with him, quietly shaping his thoughts as he continued to study. Despite his growing intellectual focus, Tesla remained sensitive to the emotions of those around him. He noticed when classmates struggled or when teachers seemed weary, and he offered help in ways that felt natural and sincere. His empathy created bonds that softened his eccentricities, allowing others to feel comfortable in his presence, even if they didn't fully understand his world. Tesla's kindness became one of his defining traits, a gentle balance to the intensity of his mind. Those who knew him during these years often remembered not just his brilliance, but the peaceful aura he carried, as if his presence itself offered a quiet reassurance. One of the most formative experiences of his youth occurred unexpectedly while observing a simple phenomenon that most people would overlook. Tesla watched a blacksmith operating a large wheel driven by a belt attached to a watermill. The motion was uneven, causing the belt to slip occasionally. Tesla imagined a different method, one that didn't require constant physical contact between the parts. He envisioned a smooth rotation, created not by friction, but by an invisible force, an early intuitive glimpse of the principles of electromagnetic induction. Though the idea was still undefined, the concept took root in his mind, growing slowly like a seed waiting for the right conditions to bloom. As the years passed, Tesla's environment continued to shift. He moved from one school to another, each time advancing to higher levels of study. Each new place broadened his perspective, exposing him to different teachers, new ideas, and more complex fields of study. But every transition also brought emotional challenges. Tesla often felt like a traveler between worlds, half-rooted in the quiet simplicity of his upbringing, half pulled toward a future filled with infinite possibility. This duality created moments of restlessness, as though he were living in two timelines at once, one grounded, one aspirational. The tension between these two selves became a core part of his identity. During his teenage years, Tesla developed a fascination with the concept of perpetual motion, a dream pursued by many inventors before him, though none had succeeded. Even at this young age, Tesla sensed that perpetual motion in the traditional sense was impossible, yet he felt that nature itself contained mechanisms that operated continuously without human intervention, rivers flowing endlessly, planets orbiting without rest, stars burning consistently for eons. He believed that if humans could understand these natural processes deeply enough, they might uncover principles that could revolutionize the world. This belief, though naive in form, contained the seeds of his lifelong exploration of energy, resonance, and wireless transmission. His health, however, was not always steady. Tesla often pushed himself to extremes, studying long hours with little sleep, sometimes to the point of collapse. He experienced fevers, bouts of exhaustion, and moments when his senses became overly sensitive, as though the world around him was too bright, too loud, too overwhelming. These episodes frightened him, yet they also heightened his awareness of the delicate balance between mind and body Tesla learned that his abilities came with a price, and though he did not always pay attention to the warning signs, he recognized that brilliance alone was not enough. Discipline and self-care were also essential, though he struggled with the latter all his life. When Tesla left home for further education in a larger city, he felt both excitement and fear. The pace of life there was faster, the streets noisier, the expectations higher. Yet Tesla adapted quickly, immersing himself in studies and discovering a broader range of scientific disciplines. He encountered new theories, new technologies, and new ways of thinking that expanded his horizons. The laboratories, with their smell of oil and metal, felt like sanctuaries where he could finally explore ideas too complex for the small schools of his childhood. Tesla's world was widening, and with it, his sense of purpose deepened. One evening, while walking through the city after dusk, Tesla paused near a lamppost glowing faintly in the darkness. The warm halo of light fascinated him, not for its brightness, but for the principle behind it, the movement of current through a filament, creating heat that radiated outward. He imagined a world where light didn't rely on burning, heating, or wasting energy, a world where illumination could be summoned effortlessly from the air itself. Even in these early days, his thoughts drifted toward forms of energy that were clean, efficient, and accessible to all. The lamppost became more than a source of light. It became a symbol of a future he longed to create. Over time, Tesla's classmates began to realize that he possessed a level of focus and dedication unlike anything they had seen. While others studied to pass examinations, Tesla studied to understand the universe. He sought comprehension, not simply achievement. His teachers, impressed by his abilities, encouraged him to pursue advanced studies in engineering, believing he had the potential to become a great inventor. Tesla felt a quiet thrill at these possibilities, yet continued to carry the weight of uncertainty that had shadowed him since childhood. He still feared disappointing his parents, especially his father, whose dream of seeing his son enter the clergy remained strong. This tension reached a pivotal point when Tesla, after years of struggle, fell gravely ill from overwork and emotional strain. He spent weeks recovering, confined to his bed, drifting in and out of fevered dreams. During this time, he confronted his deepest fears of failure, of inadequacy, of never becoming the person he sensed he was meant to be. Yet it was during one of these fragile nights that he made a decision that would shape the rest of his life. He resolved to pursue science with full devotion, no matter the cost. He promised himself that if he survived his illness, he would follow the path that his mind and spirit demanded, even if it led him into the unknown. His recovery became a turning point. Tesla emerged from his sickness with newfound clarity, a quiet conviction that guided him through the next stage of his journey. He returned to his studies with renewed determination, driven not by duty or expectation, but by a deep inner calling. His understanding of electricity grew sharper, his ability to visualize complex systems stronger. The visions that had once unsettled him now felt like whispers of guidance, illuminating possibilities others couldn't yet imagine. Little by little, Tesla began to feel the edges of his destiny taking shape. He sensed that his childhood curiosity, his grief, his studies, his illnesses, and his inner visions were all pieces of a larger pattern. He didn't know where the path would lead, but he felt certain that he was being guided toward something extraordinary, something that would reshape his life and the lives of countless others. And so, as Tesla stepped into the final years of his schooling, he carried with him not just knowledge, but an awakening. The boy from Smiljan, shaped by storms, silence, and invisible forces, was beginning to understand his place in the world. The quiet foundation of his early life had prepared him for the extraordinary path ahead, a journey that would take him across continents, through triumphs and heartbreak, into the heart of scientific revolution. His childhood was ending, but his destiny was only beginning. As Nikola Tesla transitioned deeper into his young adulthood, he entered a phase of life defined by both extraordinary discovery and profound internal struggle. The academic world offered him knowledge in endless streams, yet the more he learned, the more he felt the quiet weight of the unanswered questions that lingered beyond the reach of textbooks. His early vision of an alternating current motor continued to glow like a distant lantern in his mind, guiding him quietly even when his studies wandered into unrelated territories. Tesla sensed that his education was no longer about absorbing facts, but about preparing his mind for something far larger. Every equation, every experiment, every late-night thought became a stepping stone toward a future he could almost glimpse, shimmering just beyond his understanding. The polytechnic environment around him was alive with ambition. Students debated theories in crowded hallways. Teachers scribbled diagrams across blackboards with chalk dust rising like mist, and laboratories hummed with the faint buzz of electrical apparatus. For many, this environment was overwhelming, but Tesla found a strange peace in it. The noise and movement formed a backdrop against which his mind could focus more clearly. He had always thrived in spaces filled with subtle, rhythmic energy, the rush of water, the pulse of storms, the quiet flow of current, and the university felt like an extension of that natural rhythm. In its corridors, he sensed the beginnings of a new era in human understanding, and he longed to contribute to that transformation. Despite this sense of purpose, Tesla's relationship with his studies sometimes drifted into extremes. He immersed himself so deeply in his work that he often forgot to eat or sleep. Days blurred together as he refined ideas in his mind, testing them, adjusting them, perfecting them before ever putting pencil to paper. He preferred mental experiments over physical ones, believing that the mind, if disciplined enough, could reveal truths without the waste of trial and error. This approach astounded his professors, who had never seen a student perform detailed mechanical calculations without notes or drawings. Tesla would simply close his eyes, picture the machine running in his mind, and identify flaws in its operation before the class even began building their prototypes. Yet, for all his brilliance, Tesla's path was never smooth. His growing intensity sometimes pushed him into episodes of exhaustion so severe that he would collapse mid-lecture or find himself unable to move for hours afterward. These episodes frightened him, revealing how delicately balanced his inner world truly was. He felt as though his mind were a powerful instrument with strings wound too tightly, capable of extraordinary music, but always on the edge of snapping. And still he pushed forward, convinced that his ideas mattered too deeply to be abandoned. In his most vulnerable moments, he whispered silent promises to himself that he would bring those ideas into reality no matter the cost. It was during one of his more stable periods that Tesla began attending public demonstrations hosted by traveling engineers and inventors. These events were rare, but whenever they arrived in town, they drew large crowds eager to witness the newest mechanical marvels. One evening, Tesla watched a demonstration of a primitive arc lamp that sputtered with uneven light. Most spectators clapped politely, impressed by the spectacle alone. But Tesla observed the device with sharper eyes, noting the inefficiency of its design, the unnecessary heat it produced, the wasteful consumption of energy. As the inventor explained the lamp's workings, Tesla silently reimagined it, seeing the flaws and hidden possibilities. Moments like this strengthened his conviction that the world was using electricity in ways that were crude and short-sighted. There were better methods waiting to be found. During his university years, Tesla also encountered new philosophical ideas that shaped his thinking in unexpected ways. He read works on the nature of matter, the concept of ether, and the invisible forces believed to permeate the universe. These concepts resonated with Tesla's lifelong fascination with the unseen. He felt that behind all physical phenomena, light, magnetism, heat, motion, there was a deeper unity, a single underlying principle waiting to be understood. While his classmates memorized scientific categorizations, Tesla sought the hidden thread connecting them. This search for unity would remain with him for the rest of his life, ultimately guiding him toward wireless energy transmission and the dream of global connectivity. Though his academic achievements were remarkable, Tesla's life outside the classroom grew increasingly turbulent. He struggled to maintain friendships, not because he lacked compassion or warmth, but because his mind often carried him into realms of thought where conversation could not follow. Friends invited him to gatherings hoping to lighten his mood, but Tesla often declined, choosing solitude over distraction. When he did attend, he was polite and gentle, offering quiet insights that left others feeling strangely calm. Yet he always drifted back to his dorm room early, drawn by the pull of unfinished thoughts, waiting for him on his desk. The world of people seemed vibrant but distant, while the world of ideas felt infinite and close. Despite his growing isolation, Tesla was not lonely in the traditional sense. His imagination provided constant companionship, filling his days with evolving ideas and elegant solutions. He learned to embrace his solitude as a kind of sanctuary, a space where his mind could stretch without interruption. In the quiet moments before dawn, when his roommates slept and the campus lay in stillness, Tesla often felt closest to the truth he was seeking. He believed that inspiration often came in these silent hours, when the noise of the day faded and the universe revealed its subtler harmonies. But his relationship with solitude also carried dangers. As he pushed deeper into his work, Tesla's body began to bear the burden of his relentless schedule. He lost weight, grew pale, and experienced intense migraines. Loud noises became unbearable, bright lights painful. He developed rituals to calm his senses, counting steps, arranging objects in specific patterns, repeating phrases to quiet his racing mind. These habits, though odd to observers, helped him maintain a sense of stability. Tesla learned to navigate the fragile boundary between creativity and collapse, though he never fully escaped the risks of living in such an elevated mental realm. One of the most pivotal moments of his youth occurred not near in a classroom or laboratory, but outdoors during a simple walk with a friend. The two were discussing a lecture on direct current motors, particularly their inefficiencies, when Tesla suddenly stopped, struck by a vision so vivid it seemed to illuminate his entire mind. He saw the rotating magnetic field, clear, elegant, and perfectly balanced. He saw coils arranged in a way that allowed current to shift in phases, creating rotation without physical contact. For a moment, the world around him faded, replaced by the imagery of a motor turning silently, steadily, without sparks or brushes. He knew instantly that this was the key that had eluded him. His friend watched Tesla freeze mid-step, puzzled by his sudden stillness. When Tesla finally spoke, his voice trembled with a quiet, almost reverent excitement. He tried to describe the vision, but the concept felt too large for spontaneous words. Instead, he drew shapes in the dirt with a stick, explaining the interplay of currents and fields. His friend listened, bewildered, but impressed by the intensity of Tesla's expression. That moment, a simple walk, a simple conversation, became the birth of one of the most revolutionary ideas in electrical engineering. Tesla later said that the rotating magnetic field appeared before him as if by divine revelation, a phrase that captured both the clarity of the idea and the awe it inspired in him. This revelation became the anchor of Tesla's ambitions. Everything he did from that point on, every calculation, every experiment, every sleepless night, was guided by the vision of the AC motor. He knew that if he could bring it into existence, it would change the world. It would allow electricity to travel vast distances, powering industries and homes without the waste inherent in existing systems. The idea felt like destiny, a thread connecting his childhood fantasies of invisible forces to the practical needs of humanity. And so, Tesla dedicated himself to making the motor real, no matter how long it took. As he continued his studies, Tesla's relationship with his professors grew more complex. Some admired him deeply, recognizing his brilliance and encouraging his unconventional methods. Others found him unsettling, a student who challenged established theories with a calm certainty that bordered on defiance. One professor, irritated by Tesla's insistence on the superiority of alternating current, dismissed the idea entirely, telling him it was a perpetual impossibility. Tesla listened respectfully, but inside he felt that old quiet ache, the sense that others were trapped in limitations he could not accept. He did not argue, but he carried the professor's dismissal as fuel for his determination. Tesla's final year at the Polytechnic was both his most productive and his most precarious. His reputation as a prodigy spread among the faculty, but so did concerns about his health. He pushed himself harder than ever, chasing the AC motor and a dozen other ideas that filled his mind. His notebooks overflowed with diagrams and equations. Late at night, he could be found pacing his room, murmuring to himself as he mentally assembled and disassembled components of machines that didn't yet exist. His roommates learned not to interrupt him during these moments, recognizing that Tesla was traveling through mental landscapes they could not enter. Eventually, the pressure became too great. Tesla's health failed once again, this time with greater severity. He was forced to leave the university before completing his examinations, not because he lacked ability, but because his body could no longer endure the relentless pace he had set for himself. This departure weighed heavily on him. He felt that he had disappointed his mentors and jeopardized his future. But even in this vulnerable state, Tesla refused to abandon his dreams. He left the Polytechnic with his mind full of ideas, carrying with him a quiet certainty that formal credentials were not the measure of his potential. The months following his departure were a blur of recovery and quiet contemplation. Tesla stayed with family, regaining strength and reflecting on the whirlwind of his academic years. He felt grateful for the knowledge he had gained, but also aware that the most important parts of his education had taken place in his own mind, in the visions, the realizations, the moments of insight that no classroom could teach. As his health improved, Tesla began to feel a growing restlessness, a desire to step into the world and test his ideas against reality. He knew he could not remain in the comfort of home forever. The future was calling, and he intended to answer. In this period of transition, Tesla found renewed clarity about the path ahead. He understood that his destiny lay not in following tradition or conforming to expectations, but in pursuing the ideas that had shaped him since childhood. He felt a quiet excitement building within him, a sense that the next chapter of his life would bring him closer than ever to fulfilling the promise of his early visions. He did not know exactly where he would go or how he would begin, but he trusted that the same invisible forces that had guided him thus far would continue to illuminate his path. Looking back years later, Tesla would remember his youth not as a period of hardship, but as a time of awakening. The struggles, the illnesses, the isolation, all of them had tempered him, sharpening his focus and deepening his resilience. His early revelations had planted seeds that would later blossom into inventions that changed the world. And though he didn't yet know it, the next steps he took would carry him from classrooms and small laboratories into vast cities, bustling industries, and eventually into the heart of America's electrical revolution. For now, however, Nikola Tesla stood at the quiet threshold of young adulthood, ready to step into a future shaped not by certainty, but by vision. And as he prepared for the next phase of his journey, he carried with him the same quiet conviction that had guided him since childhood, the belief that the universe was filled with hidden forces waiting patiently for those who were willing to listen. His life was moving forward, and soon he would leave home behind once again, guided by an idea powerful enough to light the world. When Nikola Tesla entered the next chapter of his life, he stepped out of the sheltered world of academia and into a realm shaped by uncertainty, ambition, and the quiet hunger to prove himself. The comfort of structured lessons and predictable routines faded behind him as he faced the reality that knowledge alone could not sustain him. The world outside demanded something different: resilience, adaptability, and the courage to navigate unfamiliar terrain. Tesla understood this instinctively, yet he carried a calm hope that the same invisible forces that had guided his studies would continue to lead him through the complexities of adulthood. He felt as though he were stepping into a wide, uncharted field where possibility and challenge blended seamlessly. His first steps into the working world brought him to a small engineering position in a modest European city. There, Tesla encountered the practical demands of industry: machines that broke down without warning, systems built more for convenience than efficiency, and managers who viewed innovation with caution rather than excitement. The work was steady, but not inspiring. Tesla found himself repairing motors built on principles he considered flawed, wondering why designers continued to rely on systems that wasted so much potential. Yet he approached his duties with gentle diligence, grateful for the chance to observe real machinery in operation. He treated each problem as a small lesson, using it to refine the idea still forming quietly in the back of his mind. During these early working years, Tesla discovered that the limitations of the world were not just mechanical, they were human as well. His colleagues were kind, but often skeptical of his unconventional insights. When he offered suggestions to improve a machine's efficiency, they responded with polite smiles, assuming his ideas were too idealistic to be practical. Tesla did not argue. He simply observed the reactions and learned from them. He realized that innovation often frightened people, especially when it challenged established practices. This understanding softened his expectations, teaching him patience. He began to recognize that bringing his visions into the world would require not just brilliance, but diplomacy and timing. Despite the slow pace of his work environment, Tesla's mind continued to move at its own rhythm. He spent evenings in his small rented room, sketching designs under the glow of a dim oil lamp. His notebooks filled with diagrams of motors powered by alternating current, each revision bringing him closer to the idea he had first seen so vividly during his student days. He imagined coils turning without sparks, fields spinning without physical contact, currents shifting like tides. Even when exhaustion pulled at him, the ideas remained steady, waiting for him just beneath the edges of thought. These quiet nights strengthened Tesla's resolve. He believed more confidently than ever that he held a key to the future in his hands. Yet life outside his imagination was far from easy. Financial strain pressed on him as wages were modest and opportunities for advancement limited. Tesla lived simply, often skipping meals to save money. He rarely indulged in comforts, choosing instead to spend his limited income on books, paper, and tools. He carried his hardships with quiet dignity, confident that they were temporary obstacles. Still, the practical demands of survival weighed heavily on him, reminding him that dreams alone could not sustain him. At times, he felt the sharp contrast between the vastness of his ideas and the narrow confines of his circumstances. It was during this period that Tesla experienced one of the most significant transitions of his early career. He secured a position with a more advanced engineering firm, one deeply involved in the development and maintenance of electrical systems across Europe. This opportunity exposed him to a broader range of technologies: dynamos, arc lamps, early transformers, and more complex power distribution networks. Tesla approached each new device with the same quiet curiosity he had carried since childhood, examining them not as finished products but as stepping stones towards something greater. The experience deepened his understanding of electrical power and sharpened his intuition for identifying weaknesses in existing designs. In the bustling workshop of the new firm, Tesla found himself surrounded by humming machinery and the constant chatter of technicians. While his colleagues focused on repairing and maintaining equipment as instructed, Tesla sought to understand the underlying principles that governed every device. He analyzed their inefficiencies, quietly imagining better alternatives. Though he rarely voiced his ideas, he continued refining his AC motor concept in his mind, improving it bit by bit. He felt his goal drawing closer, like a faint light emerging through fog. With each passing day, his confidence grew that the world was ready for a new kind of power system, one that would reshape cities and industries alike. Tesla's work ethic quickly set him apart. His supervisors noticed his precision, his ability to solve problems others deemed unsolvable, and his unusual capacity to work long hours without losing focus. He became known as the quiet genius in the corner, the one who rarely spoke but always delivered flawless results. While others relied on trial and error, Tesla relied on the clarity of his inner vision. He could see a machine's operation in his mind long before he touched it, identifying faults with uncanny accuracy. This ability earned him both admiration and a hint of envy. But Tesla remained humble, often stepping aside when praised, unsure how to respond to expectations he never sought. Despite these successes, Tesla felt increasingly constrained by the conservative nature of European engineering. His employers valued reliability more than innovation, preferring incremental improvements to radical ideas. This cautious mindset frustrated Tesla. He didn't want to maintain the old systems. He wanted to transform them. The rotating magnetic field pulsing in his imagination demanded more than small upgrades. It required a revolution in how electricity was generated, transmitted, and used. Tesla sensed that Europe, with its old institutions and slow-moving industries, might not be the right place for such a bold transformation. During this time, Tesla's nights grew longer and more contemplative. He felt something shifting inside him, a soft but steady pull toward a distant horizon. He found himself dreaming of foreign cities, places where invention wasn't confined by tradition. When he read about the rapid industrial growth in America, about the skyscrapers rising in New York, the factories multiplying in Chicago, the new electrical companies competing fiercely to shape the future, something stirred in him. The idea of America became a quiet beacon, calling to him with the promise of opportunity and freedom. He imagined a land where ideas were not judged by their origins, but by their potential. Tesla's decision to leave Europe was not sudden. It emerged slowly, like light growing across a morning sky. He weighed the risks carefully, knowing that the journey would require sacrifices. He might arrive with nothing. He might fail. He might never find the support he needed to bring his inventions to life. And yet, despite these fears, Tesla felt a calm certainty that America offered him a chance to step fully into his destiny. He sensed that the invisible currents guiding his life were pushing him westward, across oceans and uncertainties, toward a future he could not yet imagine but deeply trusted. As he made preparations to depart, Tesla experienced a mixture of grief and anticipation. Leaving Europe meant leaving behind the familiar rhythms of its cities, the languages he had grown accustomed to, and the colleagues who had shaped his early years. But it also meant stepping into a world vast enough to hold his dreams. On the night before his departure, Tesla packed his belongings into a small trunk. A few notebooks, a handful of clothing, some letters from home, and the blueprint of an idea that existed only in his mind. He sat by the window, listening to the quiet hum of the city, and whispered a silent promise to himself. He would not turn back, no matter how difficult the path ahead became. When he boarded the ship bound for America, Tesla carried little money but an abundance of hope. The ship's decks were crowded with travelers seeking better lives, each carrying their own stories of struggle and aspiration. Tesla felt a kinship with them, though he spoke little. He spent most of the journey standing at the railings, watching the ocean stretch endlessly in every direction. The vastness of the sea reminded him of the vastness of possibility, of how small beginnings could lead to extraordinary outcomes. He felt the quiet thrill of transformation rising within him. The boy from Smiljan, shaped by storms and solitude, was now a young man crossing oceans with nothing but ideas to his name. There were moments during the voyage when doubt crept in, moments when Tesla wondered whether he was chasing an illusion. But each doubt was met by a deeper conviction. He believed that every invention, every breakthrough began with a leap into the unknown, and so he allowed himself to trust the uncertainty, to embrace the journey as part of his destiny. When the ship finally reached New York Harbor, Tesla stood at the railings as the skyline rose before him, illuminated by the early morning sun. He felt a quiet shiver of awe. The city looked like a dream brought to life, tall, shimmering, full of motion. He sensed that his life was about to change forever. Yet, when Tesla stepped off the ship, he carried only 4 cents in his pocket, a handful of belongings, and a letter of recommendation. His future was uncertain, his resources limited, and the city before him overwhelming. But he felt no fear. Instead, he felt a calm, steady determination settling into him. He had crossed an ocean to follow a vision, and he would not abandon it now. New York, with its towers of steel and its restless energy, felt like the perfect place for a man who dreamed in electricity. Tesla took his first steps into the city with quiet curiosity, observing the bustling streets, the tangle of wires above, and the endless flow of people weaving past him. The air was thick with possibility. Somewhere in this labyrinth of buildings and ambition, he believed he would find the opportunity he needed. And though he could not yet see the path ahead, Tesla felt a familiar certainty rising within him, the same certainty that had guided him since childhood. The world was filled with invisible forces, waiting patiently for someone who knew how to listen. And Tesla, even in the midst of an unfamiliar city, was still listening. When Nikola Tesla stepped onto the busy streets of New York City, he was overwhelmed not by fear, but by a quiet sense of awe. The city moved with a rhythm unlike anything he had ever known, a constant flow of footsteps, carriage wheels clattering against cobblestone, the distant clank of machinery drifting from factories, and above it all, a restless hum of human ambition. Tesla felt the energy of the place the moment he arrived. It pulsed through the air like a living current, mirroring the forces that had shaped his imagination since childhood. Despite arriving with almost nothing, he sensed that he had finally reached the environment where his ideas could take root. His first days in New York were a blur of exploration and survival. He wandered through dense neighborhoods filled with immigrants like himself, each searching for a place to belong. Tesla listened to languages he didn't recognize, watched faces filled with hope and uncertainty, and felt a kinship with the millions of people who had crossed oceans chasing a better future. But unlike many newcomers, Tesla didn't dream of money or status. He dreamed of invention, of shaping a world illuminated by clean, efficient power. The city, with its tangled wires and flickering lamps, felt like a puzzle waiting to be solved. Tesla's letter of recommendation eventually led him to the doorstep of one of the most dominant electrical companies of the era, the Edison Machine Works. The factory was bustling with workers assembling dynamos, wiring circuits, and preparing shipments destined for growing cities across America. The energy inside was palpable. As Tesla stepped through the doors for the first time, he sensed that he was entering a world of immense opportunity and immense challenge. The air smelled of oil and hot metal, and the constant drone of machinery vibrated through the floor. It was chaotic. But within that chaos, Tesla felt strangely at home. When he finally met Thomas Edison, Tesla was struck by the contrast between them. Edison was rugged, practical, and unshakably confident, his energy grounded in a gritty, hands-on approach to invention. Tesla, in comparison, was refined, gentle, and introspective. The two men represented two very different philosophies of innovation. Edison believed in endless experimentation, while Tesla believed in the power of precise visualization. Yet, despite their differences, there was an undeniable spark of mutual respect in that first meeting. Edison recognized Tesla's intelligence immediately, and Tesla admired Edison's relentless determination. This brief harmony would not last forever, but in this moment, it felt promising. Tesla began working tirelessly for Edison, often laboring late into the night to repair or redesign equipment that others considered beyond saving. He impressed everyone with his unique ability to diagnose mechanical faults simply by listening to the sound of a machine. Workers often gathered quietly around him, marveling as he fixed complex problems in minutes. He was a quiet presence, speaking little but achieving much. His dedication did not go unnoticed. Edison himself relied on Tesla's skill, assigning him increasingly difficult tasks and frequently expressing his admiration for Tesla's abilities. But beneath this outward success, Tesla felt a growing tension. Edison's empire was built entirely on direct current, a system that Tesla believed was fundamentally flawed. DC required thick wires, constant voltage, and expensive infrastructure, and it lost power rapidly over long distances. Tesla had already envisioned a better solution, alternating current, but he knew the idea would not be welcomed here. Edison had invested too much money, time, and reputation into DC. Any challenge to it was seen as a threat, not an opportunity. Tesla kept his AC ideas to himself, sensing the storm that would erupt if he spoke too soon. Despite the long hours, Tesla found quiet joy in wandering through the city after work. He often walked alone at night, observing the dim glow of electric lamps struggling to illuminate the streets. He watched the shadows cast by early streetlights, noting the inefficiencies of the systems powering them. Even in exhaustion, his mind remained active, analyzing, imagining, and refining. He dreamed of a world where electricity flowed freely through the air, where light was abundant and effortless, and where power lines were not chains but invisible pathways connecting humanity. These dreams kept him grounded during the grueling days at the machine works. One evening, while Tesla was still new to the company, Edison approached him with a challenge that would become legendary. The DC generators being used on a major project were failing repeatedly, costing the company a fortune. Edison promised Tesla a bonus, $50,000, if he could redesign the system to eliminate the problems. Tesla accepted the challenge without hesitation. He worked day and night, often going without sleep, rethinking the machines from the ground up. When he finally presented his redesigned system, it worked flawlessly. The company saved enormous sums of money. Tesla felt a moment of quiet pride, believing he had finally proven his worth. But when Tesla asked for the promised reward, Edison laughed and dismissed it as a joke. "Tesla, you don't understand our American humor," he reportedly said. The words struck Tesla like a blow. He felt a deep disconnect, not just personal disappointment, but a realization that the world of business did not operate with the same sincerity and integrity that guided his own life. It wasn't the money that wounded him, but the betrayal. He realized then that staying at the machine works would eventually suffocate him. His ideas were too different, too ambitious, too revolutionary for the confines of Edison's empire. And so, with quiet dignity, Tesla resigned. The months that followed were harsh. Without steady income, Tesla struggled to survive in the city that had once filled him with hope. He took whatever work he could find, most notably digging ditches to lay electrical cables for a company installing street lighting. The physical labor was grueling, and the pay barely enough to sustain him. Yet Tesla never allowed bitterness to take root. As he shoveled earth and carried heavy tools, he continued to imagine his alternating current system, treating each moment of hardship as fuel for the dream he refused to abandon. The ditch digging became a humbling chapter in his life, a reminder that even great minds sometimes begin at the lowest points. Despite the challenges, Tesla's spirit remained unbroken. He continued to think, to plan, and to refine his vision. He kept his notebooks close, writing late at night in cramped, rented rooms, sketching diagrams of motors powered by AC. His ideas grew more detailed, more precise. He imagined entire power stations, long-distance transmission lines, and devices that could convert electrical energy into mechanical motion with unprecedented efficiency. His poverty could not dull the brilliance of his imagination. In fact, the limitations may have sharpened it. Eventually, Tesla's quiet genius caught the attention of a group of investors who recognized the potential of his ideas. They helped him establish the Tesla Electric Light and Manufacturing Company, giving him a small laboratory where he could work freely. For the first time in America, Tesla had a space of his own, a sanctuary where he could pursue the inventions that had lived in his mind for so many years. The walls of the lab were bare at first, but Tesla filled them with wires, coils, rotating devices, and intricate circuits. He moved with renewed energy, as though the room itself were an extension of his thoughts. In this new laboratory, Tesla began work on his alternating current motor with a calm determination that bordered on reverence. He approached each component with precision, assembling the machine exactly as he had envisioned during his student days. When he applied power, and the motor began to turn smoothly, silently, without sparks, Tesla felt a profound sense of fulfillment. The idea that had followed him across continents had finally taken physical form. It was no longer just a vision. It was real. The AC motor was only the beginning. Tesla refined the design, creating new variations that demonstrated the versatility of alternating current. He built transformers, generators, and distribution systems that worked together seamlessly. The elegance of his inventions attracted more attention, eventually drawing the interest of George Westinghouse, a visionary industrialist looking for alternatives to Edison's DC system. Westinghouse recognized Tesla's brilliance immediately. He offered to buy Tesla's patents and bring him into his company. Tesla accepted, sensing that he had finally found a partner who shared his belief in the future of electricity. As Tesla's AC system began gaining traction, a quiet rivalry began to form, one that would soon erupt into a dramatic conflict known as the War of Currents. Edison, unwilling to abandon his investment in DC, launched a campaign to discredit Tesla's ideas. He warned of the dangers of alternating current, staging demonstrations meant to frighten the public. The campaigns were harsh and often cruel, painting AC as a deadly force. Tesla watched these developments with a calm demeanor, refusing to engage in personal attacks. He believed that truth would prevail, that the efficiency of his system would speak louder than any smear campaign. During this turbulent period, Tesla found solace in his laboratory. He continued to create, experiment, and refine, letting his work speak for him. The hum of his coils, the glow of his lamps, and the rhythm of rotating machinery brought him peace amid the storm. While the world debated the safety and practicality of AC, Tesla moved quietly forward, guided not by competition, but by vision. His calmness became his strength. Despite the noise outside, he never lost sight of the future he hoped to build. As the chapter of early struggle and early triumph drew to a close, Tesla stood on the verge of a transformation not just for himself, but for the world. The alternating current system he had nurtured from childhood would soon illuminate cities, power industries, and reshape modern civilization. But in these early moments, he remained the same gentle, introspective soul he had always been, a man guided by the invisible forces he sensed so clearly, even when no one else believed. And as the quiet night settled over his small laboratory, Tesla stepped toward the next stage of his destiny, unaware that his greatest challenges and greatest triumphs were still yet to come. When Nikola Tesla entered the next stage of his journey, he stepped deeper into the currents of destiny that had been quietly guiding him since childhood. Soon after leaving Edison's company, the world around him began to shift in ways he could feel but not yet name. New relationships emerged, new opportunities unfolded, and new challenges stirred beneath the surface like unseen storms. Tesla sensed that he was no longer a wandering inventor, searching for a place to belong. He was becoming something different, something the world was not yet prepared to understand. And in this new atmosphere of possibility, his partnership with George Westinghouse would become a turning point not only for Tesla, but for the future of electricity itself. The first time Tesla visited the Westinghouse headquarters, he felt a sense of quiet recognition. The workshops were bright, orderly, and filled with the sound of machines humming with purpose. There was a focus here, a clarity of ambition that resonated with Tesla's inner rhythm. George Westinghouse, a man known for both innovation and genuine compassion, greeted Tesla warmly. Their conversation flowed with surprising ease, each man intuitively understanding the other. Westinghouse saw in Tesla not just an engineer, but a visionary. Tesla saw in Westinghouse not just a businessman, but a partner capable of bringing his ideas into the world with integrity and courage. Westinghouse listened attentively as Tesla explained the principles of alternating current. Unlike others who had dismissed the concept as dangerous or impractical, Westinghouse recognized its potential immediately. He saw a future where AC could light entire cities, power distant factories, and transform the very infrastructure of society. His belief in Tesla's vision was so strong that he purchased the patents on the spot and offered Tesla a generous royalty. This moment marked the beginning of one of the most important collaborations in the history of electricity. A partnership built not on competition or ego, but on shared purpose. Tesla's early days at Westinghouse were filled with quiet excitement. He found himself surrounded by engineers eager to understand his inventions, workers curious about his unusual methods, and administrators uncertain but hopeful. Tesla moved through the workshops with calm confidence, assembling prototypes with remarkable precision. He demonstrated his AC motors, transformers, and induction systems, each device operating with a smoothness that left onlookers stunned. For the first time in America, Tesla felt truly supported, his ideas nurtured rather than suppressed. The laboratory became a sanctuary where his creativity could unfold without restraint. But even as Tesla's partnership with Westinghouse flourished, a storm was brewing outside their walls. Thomas Edison, still committed to direct current, viewed the rise of AC as a threat to his empire. Edison's discomfort shifted into a fierce rivalry, a conflict that would soon engulf the entire nation. The war of currents began quietly at first, with articles, demonstrations, and debates. But the tension quickly escalated into a public battle fueled by fear, misinformation, and dramatic displays meant to sway public opinion. Tesla found himself in the center of a conflict he had not sought, fighting not through aggression, but through unwavering belief in the truth of his work. While Edison attacked AC with theatrical warnings and frightening demonstrations, Tesla remained calm. He avoided personal confrontation, choosing instead to let his inventions speak for themselves. He believed deeply that the efficiency and elegance of alternating current would reveal its value over time. Yet, even his tranquil demeanor could not shield him from the emotional toll of watching his life's work portrayed as dangerous. Tesla had always been sensitive to the emotions of others, and he felt the weight of public fear pressing heavily against his dreams. Westinghouse, however, refused to back down. He stood firmly by Tesla's side, confident that AC was the future. Together, they pushed forward with demonstrations of their own, calm, clean, and precise presentations that showcased the safety and superiority of their system. Tesla performed many of these demonstrations personally, allowing current to pass harmlessly through his body to power lamps, motors, and devices. These displays, delivered with gentle confidence, began to shift public opinion. People saw that AC was not the monster it had been painted to be, but a powerful and reliable force that could shape a modern world. Despite the growing support for AC, the pressure on Westinghouse's company intensified. Edison's campaign strained public trust and triggered waves of legal battles, financial stress, and corporate sabotage. Investors grew nervous, engineers were divided, and the media often portrayed the conflict as a looming disaster. There were moments when the company teetered on the edge of collapse. Tesla, observing the strain on Westinghouse, felt a quiet sorrow. He admired the man deeply and understood how heavily the burden weighed on his shoulders. Tesla's empathy guided him to make a decision that would define his character. He voluntarily tore up the contract that guaranteed him royalties worth millions. This act was not dramatic. It was quiet, done in a private moment of sincerity. Tesla believed that clinging to wealth while Westinghouse struggled would betray the very ideals he held dear. He had not come to America to accumulate money. He had come to bring his vision to life. And so, without hesitation, he released Westinghouse from the financial obligations of their agreement, freeing the company to move forward. This selfless gesture nearly broke Westinghouse emotionally. It also saved his company. And although the world did not know it at the time, Tesla's choice reshaped the entire trajectory of electrical history. As AC systems gained traction across the country, an extraordinary opportunity emerged, one that would test the limits of Tesla's ingenuity. The Niagara Falls Commission announced the beginning of a massive project, harnessing the immense power of Niagara Falls to electrify surrounding regions. Engineers from around the world submitted proposals, each claiming their system could master the falls. Many believed the project was too ambitious, the currents were too strong, the distances too vast, the engineering too complex. But Tesla felt a quiet certainty. He had envisioned this moment years ago, a world where natural forces could be transformed into clean, abundant energy. When the Commission selected Tesla's alternating current system for the project, it marked a turning point not only for him, but for the entire world. Tesla had dreamed of Niagara since his youth, imagining turbines spinning in perfect harmony with nature. To him, powering the region with AC was not just a technical achievement, it was poetry. As construction began, Tesla visited the site and felt overwhelmed by the beauty of the rushing water. He stood at the edge of the falls, listening to their thunder, and sensed that he was witnessing the fulfillment of a dream that had been whispering to him since childhood. Tesla worked tirelessly with the Westinghouse team to design the generators, the transmission lines, and the distribution networks. He approached each challenge with calm focus, visualizing solutions in his mind long before committing them to paper. The AC power station slowly took shape, rising from the mist like a monument to human imagination. Thousands of workers, engineers, and laborers contributed to the project, each playing a part in the creation of something unprecedented. Tesla often visited the site late at night, standing in silence beneath the moonlight. As the turbines rumbled below, he felt the quiet merging of nature and technology, a harmony he believed was the essence of progress. When the Niagara Falls power plant was finally completed, the moment felt almost sacred. As the massive generators came to life, Tesla watched the instruments carefully, ensuring that every component aligned perfectly with his designs. The turbines spun with steady grace, converting the raw force of the falls into powerful currents that flowed effortlessly across miles of transmission lines. When lights flickered on in Buffalo, miles away, Tesla felt a surge of quiet triumph wash through him. The world had changed in that instant. For the first time, a city far from its power source was illuminated by the forces of nature harnessed through alternating current. The success of Niagara Falls silenced the critics once and for all. Newspapers hailed Tesla as a visionary, praising the elegance and efficiency of his system. Cities across the nation began converting to AC, drawn by its superior performance. The war of currents was over. Tesla had won, not through aggression or force, but through clarity of vision, compassion, and unwavering belief in the power of invisible forces. Yet, amid this triumph, Tesla remained humble. He wandered the streets of New York quietly, observing the newly illuminated avenues with gentle satisfaction. For him, the victory was not personal. It was a step toward a future he hoped to build, a world powered by clean, abundant energy. He saw the lights as symbols not of fame, but of possibility. And even as the world celebrated, Tesla's mind had already begun drifting toward new ideas, new inventions, new dreams waiting in the wings. The Niagara victory closed one chapter of Tesla's life, but another far more extraordinary chapter was about to begin. It would take him beyond motors and currents, beyond power stations and wires, into realms where energy flowed freely through the air and imagination became the spark for miracles. And as night fell over the illuminated city, Tesla walked calmly through the glow, unaware that the next phase of his destiny would lead him to the most ambitious project he would ever attempt, one that would change the course of his life forever. After the triumphant success at Niagara Falls, Nikola Tesla entered a period of his life marked by remarkable creativity, growing fame, and increasingly ambitious dreams. The world had finally begun to recognize the scope of his genius. Cities across America glowed with alternating current. Industries flourished with newfound power, and the idea of a fully electrified nation no longer felt like a distant fantasy. Tesla's name became synonymous with innovation, and yet, even as others celebrated him, he felt a quiet shift deep within. The completion of Niagara was not the culmination of his vision. It was merely the foundation for something far more extraordinary. Tesla returned to New York with a renewed sense of purpose. His laboratory on South Fifth Avenue became a sanctuary for exploration, filled with coils, glass tubes, oscillators, and devices that pulsed with blue-white light. At night, the lab glowed with a faint electric radiance visible from the street, drawing curious onlookers who whispered about the strange experiments conducted inside. Tesla often worked alone until dawn, moving through the space with gentle precision, adjusting wires, calibrating circuits, and listening to the subtle hum of his inventions. He felt most alive in these quiet hours, when the outside world slept and the boundaries between imagination and reality seemed to soften. One evening, as Tesla experimented with high-frequency currents, he made a discovery that left him quietly awestruck. He observed that certain electrical frequencies could pass through the body harmlessly, creating a gentle glow around objects and even illuminating bulbs held in the air. As he stood in the center of his laboratory, surrounded by coils arcing soft halos of light, Tesla felt as though he had stepped into the future. He realized that electricity did not have to travel through wires, it could be transmitted through space itself. This insight became the seed of his most daring dream: wireless power. The idea consumed him. Day after day, Tesla refined his experiments, discovering new properties of resonance, frequency, and magnetic induction. He developed the Tesla coil, a device capable of generating spectacular electrical discharges and transmitting power without direct contact. The coil became both a symbol of his genius and a gateway to new possibilities. Visitors to his lab watched in stunned silence as Tesla lit lamps from across the room, powered motors without wires, and created luminous displays that danced in the air like living lightning. These demonstrations sparked wonder and curiosity around the world. But to Tesla, they were simply early sketches, previews of what he hoped to build on a far grander scale. During this period, Tesla's fame grew rapidly. Newspapers published glowing articles describing him as a modern wizard, a man who commanded electricity with supernatural grace. Journalists flocked to his demonstrations, filling their reports with awestruck descriptions of the man who walked among lightning without fear. Tesla handled the attention with gentle humility. He spoke softly, answered questions thoughtfully, and carried himself with a calm confidence that left a lasting impression. Yet beneath the surface, he felt a subtle loneliness. The crowds admired his abilities, but few understood the depth of his vision or the complexity of his inner world. Social life often felt like a distraction, but Tesla maintained a small circle of friends who appreciated his unique temperament. He attended occasional dinners, though he rarely stayed long. His aversion to noise and bright lights made large gatherings overwhelming, and his strict personal habits, avoiding handshakes, meticulously counting steps, preferring solitude, made him appear eccentric to those who did not know him well. But his sincerity and kindness endeared him to those who took the time to understand him. Tesla was never unkind, never arrogant, and never dismissive. He simply lived in a different rhythm, one guided by a mind that never stopped searching. As Tesla's wireless power experiments advanced, he began envisioning something unprecedented, a global system of energy transmission. He imagined a network of towers that would broadcast electricity through the Earth itself, allowing anyone, anywhere, to access power freely. The concept was radical, elegant, and profoundly idealistic. Tesla believed that energy was a gift of nature meant to be shared without restriction. To him, wireless power was not just a technological breakthrough, it was a step toward unity, a way to dissolve borders and bring humanity closer together. Yet, to make this vision real, Tesla needed a patron, a figure with immense resources and an understanding of the potential in his ideas. That patron would arrive in the form of J.P. Morgan, one of the most powerful financiers in America. Their first meeting was a study in contrasts. Tesla, tall and slender, radiating quiet brilliance; Morgan, broad-shouldered and commanding, carrying the weight of an empire in his presence. Tesla presented his wireless telegraphy concepts with calm confidence, demonstrating devices that sent signals through space with elegant precision. Morgan listened carefully, impressed by Tesla's intellect and charisma. He agreed to fund a large-scale project, paving the way for what would become Tesla's most ambitious undertaking, Wardenclyffe Tower. With Morgan's financial backing, Tesla purchased land on Long Island and began construction on a massive tower designed to transmit wireless communication across the Atlantic. It was a bold beginning, but Tesla's vision extended far beyond telegraphy. He intended to use the tower to broadcast not just information, but power itself. He dreamed of a world where homes, ships, and entire cities could draw electricity from the air, where lamps glowed without wires, where engines ran without fuel, where the Earth's own resonance carried energy effortlessly across vast distances. As construction progressed, Tesla visited the site often. The land felt serene, untouched by the noise of the city. He would stand at the base of the towering structure, listening to the wind whistle through the scaffolding, imagining the currents that would one day flow through its core. He felt a deep serenity during these moments, as though he were standing on the threshold of a new world. Workers admired his dedication, noting how often he appeared at dawn or stayed until dusk, lost in contemplation. But Tesla's ambition soon exceeded the limits of Morgan's patience. As the scope of the project expanded, so did the cost. Tesla spoke openly about wireless power, a concept Morgan found troubling. If electricity could be transmitted freely, how could it be controlled? How could it be monetized? Tesla's idealism clashed sharply with Morgan's practicality. The financier had invested in communication, not a global power revolution. When Morgan realized the true scale of Tesla's intentions, he withdrew support. Funding evaporated. Construction halted. Wardenclyffe Tower stood incomplete, a skeleton of steel and promise stretching into the sky. The collapse of Wardenclyffe marked one of the most painful chapters of Tesla's life. He retreated into deep introspection, burdened by the weight of a dream that had come so close to realization, yet remained just out of reach. At night, he wandered the halls of his laboratory alone, listening to the quiet hum of devices that no longer had a future. He felt not anger, but a profound sadness, an ache that settled in his chest like a quiet storm. The world had glimpsed his vision, but it had not yet been ready to embrace it. Despite these setbacks, Tesla did not fall into despair. His spirit, though wounded, remained unbroken. He continued to invent, pouring his energy into oscillators, lighting systems, turbines, and new forms of wireless communication. His mind remained alive with possibility, each idea a reminder that imagination could not be extinguished by financial hardship or public misunderstanding. Even when money grew scarce and his laboratory expenses became difficult to manage, Tesla never compromised the purity of his vision. He believed that time would eventually vindicate him. But as the years passed, Tesla's work drifted further from the public eye. New inventors emerged, new industries formed, and the world's attention shifted toward technologies that promised quicker profits. Tesla watched these changes with quiet acceptance. He had never sought fame. He had sought understanding. And though his name faded from headlines, his mind remained focused on the hidden harmonies of the universe. Tesla began spending more time alone, walking through the city late at night, visiting parks where he could sit in silence beneath the trees. He felt the world changing around him, faster, louder, more mechanical, but he carried within him a tranquility that no external force could disturb. In these solitary moments, he reflected on the path he had chosen. He knew his dreams had pushed him far beyond the boundaries of conventional science, and he accepted the loneliness that came with such a journey. Even as his financial situation grew precarious, Tesla found light in unexpected places. He developed a gentle attachment to the pigeons in Bryant Park, feeding them each morning and watching their wings glint softly in the sun. Among them he found a quiet friend, a white pigeon with pale gray markings that visited him daily. In her presence, Tesla found comfort, companionship, and a sense of peace that eased the burdens on his heart. To him, she was a reminder that beauty and kindness could exist even in the midst of hardship. The world around Tesla was evolving rapidly, often in directions he had predicted long before. Radio, remote control, neon lighting, high-frequency communication, each advancement echoed pieces of his earlier work. But recognition rarely came. Others claimed credit, patents were disputed, and Tesla's contributions were often forgotten or overshadowed. Yet he bore no resentment. He believed that the truth would eventually surface, and that history would see the invisible threads connecting his early visions to modern achievements. As Tesla entered the later years of his life, he carried with him a serene acceptance of the path he had walked. He understood that the world had not yet been ready for many of his ideas, but he also knew that the seeds he planted would continue to grow long after he was gone. His inventions had illuminated cities, transformed industries, and opened doors to technologies still unfolding. His dreams had expanded the boundaries of possibility, and through it all, he remained the same gentle soul, He had been since childhood, a man guided by invisible forces, seeking harmony in a world that often preferred noise, a visionary who walked among lightning with heart and humility, a dreamer who believed even in the quietest moments that the universe was filled with wonder. As Chapter 4 drew to a close, Tesla stood at the threshold of a new phase of his journey, one marked not by grand laboratories or towering projects, but by introspection, resilience, and the pursuit of truths deeper than any invention. His life was shifting once again, moving into a realm where legacy, memory, and the echoes of brilliance would shape the final chapters of his story. And through the soft light of evenings in New York, Tesla continued to walk calmly forward, still dreaming, still listening, still guided by the luminous force that had been with him from the beginning. Nikola Tesla entered the next era of his life with a gentle sense of both triumph and uncertainty. The victory at Niagara Falls had reshaped the electrical landscape of the world, illuminating entire regions and proving beyond doubt the power of alternating current. Yet even in the glow of this achievement, Tesla felt something shifting quietly beneath the surface of his existence. He could sense that the greatest part of his journey was still ahead of him, an unexplored frontier where imagination reached beyond the familiar boundaries of wires and machines. He walked into this chapter with calm steps, unaware that he was crossing into the most daring and transformative period of his career. His New York laboratory became the heart of his world during these years. The building stood modestly from the outside, but within its walls, Tesla created one of the most astonishing environments of scientific exploration in history. Coils hummed softly, glass tubes flickered with gentle blue light. Devices oscillated with rhythmic precision. The air itself seemed to vibrate with energy, carrying a faint metallic scent that lingered long after experiments concluded. Tesla moved through this space like a conductor guiding an invisible orchestra, adjusting settings, recalibrating instruments, and listening intently to frequencies no one else could hear. Here, surrounded by the quiet glow of his inventions, he felt truly at peace. Tesla's experiments with high-frequency currents deepened rapidly, each discovery leading seamlessly into the next. He observed how certain frequencies created unusual electrical effects, waves that passed through objects without resistance, sparks that moved with liquid smoothness, and forms of light that shimmered without generating heat. The laboratory became a theater of silent storms, where electricity danced above his hands like living silk. Tesla watched these phenomena with calm wonder, sensing that they were the key to unlocking the next stage of human progress. They whispered the possibility of a world free from wires, a world where energy flowed as naturally as air or water. One late evening, Tesla performed an experiment that would become iconic in the history of electricity. He stood at the center of his laboratory, holding a long glass tube. When he activated the surrounding coils, the tube sprang to life in his hand, glowing with an ethereal blue radiance. No wires connected it to power. It illuminated only because of the invisible field of energy surrounding him. Tesla turned slowly, watching the light shift in his hand like a thread of captured starlight. In this moment, he realized fully what he had suspected for years. Electricity could be transmitted through space without wires, harnessed through resonance rather than contact. It was a revelation that expanded the horizon of everything he dreamed. News of Tesla's experiments spread quickly, carried by journalists who described him as a modern alchemist, part scientist, part magician. People imagined him walking among lightning, commanding currents with supernatural ease. Yet Tesla himself remained composed and gentle, never indulging in dramatic flair except when demonstrating principles to help others understand. He felt that the beauty of electricity spoke for itself. There was no need to embellish what nature already made magnificent. For Tesla, the glowing lamps and resonant coils were simply early sketches in the immense work he envisioned. As the world looked on with fascination, Tesla began crafting a plan that would become the cornerstone of his legacy, a global wireless energy system. He imagined a world where enormous resonant towers would transmit power across continents, reaching homes, ships, factories, and remote villages without need for cables. In his mind, he saw a network of invisible currents flowing through the earth and sky. Lamps would glow anywhere. Devices would run effortlessly. The boundary between energy and air would dissolve entirely. It was a dream so far ahead of its time that many struggled to comprehend it. Yet Tesla believed deeply that nature operated through resonance, and that humans could one day tap into that rhythm. To bring this vision into reality, Tesla needed a powerful ally, someone with vast financial resources and the willingness to pursue an idea that defied conventional thought. This led him to J.P. Morgan, a figure whose presence commanded rooms and whose influence shaped entire industries. Their first meeting carried a palpable tension of opposites. Tesla, slender and soft-spoken, radiating intellectual light. Morgan, solid and imposing, grounded in the pragmatic world of business. Yet Tesla's knowledge and calm confidence intrigued Morgan. He agreed to fund a revolutionary wireless telegraphy system, believing it would provide global communication superior to anything that existed at the time. With Morgan's support secured, Tesla acquired land on Long Island, a vast stretch of earth overlooking the sea. Here, he began building what would become known as Wardenclyffe Tower. From a distance, the construction looked like a colossal wooden skeleton reaching toward the sky, a strange monument emerging from solitude. Tesla visited the site often, standing beneath the rising frame with hands clasped gently behind his back, imagining the currents that would pulse through it. Workers sometimes observed him standing motionless for long stretches, lost in contemplation. For Tesla, the tower was not merely a machine, it was the conduit to a new world. Tesla poured immense energy into the construction, designing components with meticulous care. He envisioned the tower acting as a giant transmitter, sending signals through both the atmosphere and the Earth itself. In his mind, the tower would resonate with the planet, allowing limitless amounts of power to be distributed wirelessly across great distances. The concept was breathtakingly ambitious. It required a level of understanding far beyond the technology of the day. But Tesla trusted the principles that guided him. He believed that if he listened closely enough, the Earth would reveal its hidden frequencies. Yet the deeper Tesla waded into this vision, the more he faced resistance, not from nature, but from people. Morgan began to sense that Tesla's intentions stretched far beyond communication. As Tesla spoke passionately about global power transmission, Morgan grew uneasy. A system that provided free energy to the world threatened the foundation of every business model built on selling electricity. Morgan asked him bluntly, "Where do we put the meter?" When Tesla could not answer in a way that aligned with Morgan's interests, funding faltered. The wealthy financier, who had once championed Tesla, withdrew his support. Construction halted abruptly, workers were dismissed, materials stopped arriving, and Wardenclyffe Tower, once alive with possibility, became eerily silent, its unfinished form casting long shadows across the barren land. Tesla visited the site alone, walking slowly around its base, tracing the beams with his hands, listening to the hum of wind passing through empty spaces. He felt a quiet ache, not born from anger, but from grief. He knew the world was not yet ready for what he envisioned. He accepted that the timing of progress was not always aligned with the dreams of those who imagined it first. Despite this setback, Tesla refused to let his spirit break. He poured his energy into other inventions, oscillators, turbines, lighting systems, and wireless communication devices. Each creation was shaped by the same calm clarity that guided him since childhood. He filled notebooks with ideas, some practical, many impossibly ahead of their time. Even as financial pressures mounted and investors withdrew, Tesla remained gracefully composed. He believed that the universe operated on a timeline of its own, and that ideas, once conceived, ultimately found their place in the world. During these years, Tesla's personal life shifted into quieter rhythms. He spent less time attending society events and more time walking alone through city streets. He found solitude in parks, observing the play of light through tree branches and listening to the rustle of leaves. The noise of crowds overwhelmed him, but the gentle movements of nature soothed his senses. He often visited Bryant Park, where a small flock of pigeons gathered near his usual bench. Over time, one particular white pigeon grew especially close to him, visiting daily and perching gently on his shoulder or hand. In her presence, Tesla felt an unexpected warmth, a reminder that even the most solitary souls could find companionship in simple, unspoken connections. The world outside Tesla's quiet circle continued evolving. New technologies emerged, many inspired by his earlier work. Radio signals traveled across oceans. Remote control devices guided machines from afar. High-frequency lighting illuminated displays with vibrant colors. Everywhere he looked, Tesla saw reflections of his own ideas, sometimes acknowledged, often not. But he harbored no resentment. His longing had never been for credit, but for progress. If humanity benefited, that alone was enough for him. In the shadows of declining fortune, Tesla's life shifted again. He moved from one modest hotel to another, often leaving behind unpaid bills he regretted but could not avoid. He continued experimenting in small rooms, using whatever materials he could afford. His fame had faded, but his mind had not. Even in constrained circumstances, he envisioned machines that manipulated space-time, resonant frequencies capable of altering matter, and energy systems that drew directly from the fabric of the Earth. Many dismissed these ideas as fantasies, but Tesla saw them as glimpses of a future too distant to be understood. Yet, even with little money, little support, and little recognition, Tesla maintained a gentle dignity. He continued dressing impeccably, greeting strangers with soft kindness, and carrying himself with the quiet poise of a man who belonged to the realm of ideas rather than material concerns. Staff in the hotels where he lived admired him, noting his grace and the almost meditative calm that surrounded him. He became a familiar figure, tall, thin, always walking with thoughtful steps, as though each movement were guided by distant music. The older Tesla grew, the more he retreated into a life shaped by memory, reflection, and the steady companionship of his beloved pigeons. The white pigeon remained his dearest companion. He spoke to her softly, fed her carefully prepared seeds, and watched her fly with a tenderness that seemed to illuminate something deep within him. To Tesla, she represented purity, innocence, and the quiet resilience of living things. When she fell ill, he tended to her with devotion. Her eventual passing brought him a grief he rarely expressed openly. In losing her, he felt the closing of a chapter that had sustained his heart through many difficult years. As Tesla entered the final chapters of his life, the world around him began rediscovering the magnitude of his earlier achievements. Engineers revisited his patents, scholars wrote articles praising his vision, and younger inventors grew inspired by the breadth of his imagination. Tesla heard fragments of these acknowledgments, but he had already retreated into an inner world that mattered more to him than public recognition. He sought not applause, but understanding, an understanding that only time could deliver. During his final years living at the New Yorker hotel, Tesla maintained a quiet routine. He rose early, fed the pigeons, conducted small experiments with whatever materials he had, and spent long hours writing in notebooks filled with theories about energy, vibration, and the hidden architecture of the universe. The people who crossed his path during these years described him as gentle, elegant, and profoundly thoughtful. There was a serenity in him, as though he had made peace with everything, the triumphs, the losses, the dreams achieved and unfulfilled. His final days were peaceful. Tesla passed away alone in his hotel room, leaving behind a legacy more immense than he ever fully realized. The world mourned him quietly at first, then more loudly as decades passed, and his contributions became undeniably clear. Today, his ideas power cities, connect continents, and shape nearly every aspect of modern technology. His vision of wireless energy continues to inspire researchers, and his name stands among the most luminous minds in history. Yet beyond all the inventions, beyond the breakthroughs and revolutions, the essence of Tesla's story is something gentler. It is the story of a man guided by invisible forces who listened to the subtle harmonies of nature, who believed in possibility with a purity rare in any age, a man who walked among lightning with humility and compassion, a dreamer who sought to light the world not for profit, but for wonder. As Chapter 5 closes, the image of Tesla standing beneath the unfinished silhouette of Warden Cliff Tower lingers softly in the imagination, a reminder that even dreams left incomplete can shape the course of humanity. And in the quiet space between what was built and what remained unbuilt, Tesla's spirit endures, glowing like a hidden star in the vast landscape of what the world has yet to discover. As Nikola Tesla stepped into the later chapters of his life, he entered a period where the outer world began to dim while his inner world grew brighter than ever. The laboratories that once echoed with the hum of coils and the whisper of electrical currents slowly gave way to quieter rooms, smaller experiments, and long stretches of gentle contemplation. Even as the public moved on to new inventions, new personalities, and new technologies, Tesla never felt resentment. Instead, he felt a deepening serenity, as though life itself were guiding him toward a slower rhythm. For him, innovation had always been a dialogue with the universe, and that conversation continued even in solitude. He still walked the streets of New York with calm, measured steps, observing the glowing lamps and vibrant signs powered by systems he helped create. Though few recognized him, Tesla took comfort in knowing that the city's shimmering nights were shaped by principles he had carried within him since childhood. Sometimes he paused beneath a streetlight, listening to the faint hum of alternating current flowing through its wires. The sound felt like an old companion, a gentle reminder that his work lived on, even when his name did not rise above the noise of the era. He breathed in the cool night air and felt quietly fulfilled. Tesla's days settled into a simple pattern, mornings spent feeding the pigeons that gathered near his hotel, afternoons filled with writing and gentle experimentation, and evenings spent walking through quiet streets lost in thought. The pigeons especially brought a warmth into his life that no scientific success ever could. He spoke to them softly, caring for them with devotion that surprised even him. The white pigeon he loved most visited him each day, landing gracefully on his shoulder and cooing softly, as though she understood his unspoken thoughts. In her presence, Tesla felt a rare sense of companionship, a reminder that kindness could exist even in a world that often misunderstood him. In his small room at the New Yorker hotel, Tesla continued filling notebooks with theories far ahead of their time. He wrote about the nature of energy, the resonance of the earth, and the invisible patterns that connected all things. Many of these ideas went unnoticed, tucked away in drawers, or left scattered on his desk. Yet Tesla treated them with the same care he once gave to monumental inventions. His mind was still luminous, still searching, still reaching toward mysteries just beyond the horizon. He believed that the universe held secrets, waiting patiently for those willing to listen. And Tesla, even in his later years, listened more closely than ever. Financially, life grew more difficult. The royalties he once gave up out of compassion never returned to him. While others prospered from technologies built upon his foundations, Tesla lived modestly, often struggling to pay hotel bills. But material comfort had never been the measure of his life's value. He found richness in ideas, in quiet moments, and in the gentle presence of the pigeons that visited him. There were evenings when hotel staff would see him sitting alone, gazing out at the city lights with a peaceful, faraway expression. In those moments, Tesla seemed not lonely but deeply connected to something expansive and unseen. As time passed, Tesla grew increasingly reflective. He thought often about his childhood in Smiljan, the thunderstorms that shook the sky, the water wheels turning in the stream, the first sparks of curiosity that shaped his destiny. He remembered the encouragement of his mother, the discipline of his father, the gentle rhythms of nature that had always guided him. These memories filled him with warmth rather than sadness. They reminded him that his journey had been shaped by beauty as much as by struggle. He understood now that life was not measured by the size of one's success, but by the depth of one's purpose. Tesla also reflected on Warden Cliff Tower, the dream that had eluded him. He thought of the wooden frame rising toward the sky, the quiet wind passing through its beams, the nights spent imagining currents flowing across continents. Rather than regret, Tesla felt gratitude for having reached so close to a vision most people could not comprehend. He believed that ideas never truly died. They simply waited for the right moment to bloom. Perhaps, he thought, wireless power would someday become real. Perhaps the future would rediscover the path he once walked alone. In his final months, Tesla's world grew even quieter. He spoke less, walked slower, and spent more time resting in his room. Yet his eyes still carried the shimmer of curiosity, the same glow they held when he first imagined rotating magnetic fields and luminous coils. Visitors who saw him noted that he remained dignified, gentle, and thoughtful to the very end. Even as his body weakened, his mind remained clear, filled with the same wonder that had guided him since childhood. His last days were peaceful, spent in quiet reflection and gentle solitude. When Tesla finally passed away in his hotel room, he left behind no fortune, no large estates, no trophies or grand monuments. What he left instead was something far greater, a world transformed by his ideas. Cities glowed because of the currents he imagined. Machines moved because of the principles he uncovered. Entire industries existed because he dared to dream beyond the limits of his time. And even though much of his genius went unrecognized during his life, the world slowly awakened to the magnitude of his contributions. Today, Tesla's legacy shines not only in the technologies that bear his name, but in the spirit of imagination he embodied. He showed the world that ideas can change the course of history, that solitude can be fertile ground for discovery, and that greatness often grows quietly, far from applause. His life stands as a reminder that true genius is not loud. It is gentle, persistent, and filled with wonder. And though Tesla's footsteps have long vanished from the streets of New York, the world he helped illuminate still carries his light, glowing softly in every home, every city, every spark of electricity that dances across the night. As Nikola Tesla entered the next chapter of his life, he found himself inhabiting a space between fame and obscurity, brilliance and exhaustion, grand vision and quiet struggle. The world around him had begun to accelerate in ways he had long predicted. New technologies emerged, industries expanded, and electricity flowed into countless homes. Yet even as civilization rushed forward powered by inventions rooted in his mind, Tesla himself moved more slowly, more thoughtfully, as though walking to a rhythm only he could hear. The glow of alternating current illuminated entire continents, but the glow around Tesla's name flickered quietly, overshadowed by younger inventors and louder voices. Still, he remained calm, guided by the inner light that had shaped his life since childhood. During this period, Tesla continued to explore ideas that stretched far beyond the boundaries of contemporary science. He believed that energy flowed through the universe in patterns deeper than human instruments could detect, waves of resonance connecting every corner of existence. His notebooks filled with sketches of devices designed to harness these subtle forces. He wrote about vibrations capable of healing the human body, energy beams that could illuminate distant horizons, and technologies that could prevent wars by making nations so interconnected that conflict would become unthinkable. Though many dismissed his later theories as overly ambitious or impractical, Tesla saw them as natural extensions of his life's work. To him, imagination was not escapism, it was exploration. Tesla's living situation evolved once again when he moved into the newly built New Yorker hotel. The building towered over the streets with an elegant Art Deco design, but inside, Tesla occupied a modest room furnished with simple necessities. The hotel staff quickly grew accustomed to his quiet routines. He often left his room before dawn to feed the pigeons outside, then returned to his desk to write, think, or tinker with small devices. Though he no longer worked in a grand laboratory, his mind remained a laboratory of endless discovery, humming with ideas as vivid as lightning. Even in simplicity, Tesla found richness. He spent long hours seated by the window of his hotel room, gazing out at the city that had changed so dramatically during his years in America. Skyscrapers reached higher than ever before, roads filled with cars, powered indirectly by his inventions, and the night glowed with thousands of electric lamps. Tesla observed these transformations with a gentle sense of satisfaction. He did not claim ownership over the world's progress, but he felt a quiet joy in knowing that he had contributed to the foundation upon which modern life was built. His heart warmed at the thought that people across the world lived more comfortably, safely, and brightly because he had dared to dream differently. Despite these moments of quiet pride, Tesla's life remained financially strained. The royalties he had relinquished to save Westinghouse decades earlier might have made him wealthy beyond imagination, but Tesla never regretted the choice. He believed deeply that sacrifice was sometimes necessary to bring progress into the world. Yet this selflessness led him into later years of hardship, relying on modest payments, occasional consulting work, and the goodwill of those who still recognized his genius. His financial struggles were a stark contrast to the monumental impact of his inventions, a paradox that became a defining element of his legacy. Tesla's health also began to shift in subtle ways. He maintained his fastidious habits, eating lightly, walking daily, avoiding noise, and these practices preserved his vitality longer than most expected. Yet his body, once slender and graceful, now grew frailer. His eyesight weakened, his appetite diminished, and his nights were often spent awake in quiet contemplation. But his mind never dulled. Even as age pressed gently against him, his thoughts remained crisp, brilliant, and expansive. Hotel staff who interacted with him were often astonished by the clarity of his speech and the elegance of his manners. He retained a gentle dignity that seemed untouched by the passage of time. In these years, Tesla became increasingly fascinated by the idea of harmony in nature, in technology, and in human society. He believed that all conflict arose from disharmony, from disruptions in the natural resonance of life. His writings from this period reflect a deep spiritual sensibility shaped not by religion, but by intuition. He wrote about the unity of all living things, the interconnectedness of energy, and the profound significance of compassion. Tesla felt that the future of humanity depended not just on scientific advancement, but on emotional and ethical evolution. Only by understanding their place in the greater tapestry of existence, he believed, could people truly thrive. One day, Tesla was invited to speak at a small gathering of scientists and students. Though he felt hesitant due to his declining health, he agreed, sensing that he still had wisdom to share. When he entered the room, the audience fell silent, not out of formality, but out of reverence. Tesla's presence, though quiet, carried a certain luminosity, a sense of depth that transcended the physical. He spoke not about circuits or machines, but about the importance of imagination, the beauty of curiosity, and the necessity of dreaming boldly, even in the face of failure. His words resonated deeply, reminding listeners that the greatest breakthroughs often begin as fragile, uncertain thoughts, carried gently in the mind of a single dreamer. Tesla's relationship with the pigeons remained a constant source of joy during this chapter. His connection to them was something few understood, but it reflected an essential aspect of his nature. To Tesla, the pigeons were not pets, but companions, creatures who accepted him without condition. The white pigeon he cherished the most continued to visit him daily, and her presence brought him a peace that little else could. When she flew to him, he felt as though the burdens of the world lifted slightly from his shoulders. He would sit with her perched on his hand, stroking her feathers gently while speaking to her in soft tones. Her companionship became a sanctuary, a reminder that love could exist even in a life marked by solitude. As Tesla's prominence faded from the public eye, younger inventors and entrepreneurs rose to prominence. The world celebrated achievements he had anticipated decades earlier. Wireless communication expanded rapidly. Radio stations broadcast music and voices across continents. Remote control devices powered machinery, guided vehicles, and assisted in household tasks. Neon lights illuminated city nights with vivid color. Nearly every major advancement carried traces of Tesla's early work. Yet, despite these echoes, few mentioned his name. Tesla watched these developments with a bittersweet sense of fulfillment. His ideas had taken root, but the world had forgotten the seed. Despite this, Tesla held no bitterness. He often wrote that ideas belonged not to the individual, but to humanity. Inventions, he believed, were gifts passed through the minds of certain individuals, meant to be shared freely with the world. He had never sought fame. He had sought understanding, progress, and harmony. Aging did not change this. If anything, it deepened his belief that the greatest innovations were not technological, but human, the capacity for compassion, empathy, and connection. In the quiet evenings of this chapter, Tesla often returned to memories of his family. He thought of his mother's gentle intelligence, her ability to craft tools with skill, born of intuition. He remembered his father's strict discipline, his voice echoing through the small wooden church in their village. He thought of his siblings, of the forests and streams of his childhood, of the storms that illuminated the night sky. These memories brought him a warmth that softened the loneliness of his hotel room. Tesla understood that his journey had begun long before America, long before alternating current, long before laboratories filled with humming coils. It began in the quiet observation of nature, in the stillness of a boy listening to the invisible. As the years continued, Tesla became something of a gentle mystery in the New Yorker hotel. Staff members whispered stories about him, his peculiar habits, his brilliance, his kindness. Some described seeing flashes of light beneath his door late at night, as though conducting secret experiments. Others spoke of his extraordinary politeness, how he stood when women entered the room, how he bowed slightly when thanking someone. He lived simply, but carried an elegance that felt timeless. Even those who knew nothing of his achievements sensed that he was someone rare. Tesla spent his final months mostly in his room, resting more than before, writing less, but always thinking. The world outside continued its rapid transformation, but inside Tesla's mind, time moved slowly, gently, like the turning of distant stars. He seemed to drift between memories and dreams, between the world he had shaped and the world he still imagined. When he looked out his window, he no longer saw merely a city. He saw a living network of energy, light, and possibility. Even in decline, he could not stop envisioning futures yet to come. In his final reflections, Tesla wrote that the greatest power in the universe was not electricity, nor resonance, nor technology. It was the force of understanding. Understanding between people, between nations, between humanity and nature. He believed that when humans learned to live in harmony with the invisible currents that shaped all existence, they would discover a peace far greater than any invention could provide. This belief, gentle and profound, became the quiet philosophy that guided him through his last days. And when Tesla's journey finally drew to a close, he left the world as softly as he had lived, quietly, peacefully, and with a mind still dreaming of endless possibilities. Though his physical presence faded, his legacy remained radiant. Every lamp glowing in the night, every motor humming gently in a factory, every transmission line carrying power across great distances, all carried his essence. His life became a whisper, woven into the fabric of modern civilization, a reminder that the greatest lights often shine from the quietest souls. And so Chapter 7 closes with the image of Tesla seated beside his window, watching the city he helped illuminate, his eyes calm, his heart peaceful, his mind still wandering through the luminous landscape of dreams. As the years continued their quiet drift forward, Nikola Tesla entered a chapter of life defined not by grand laboratories or towering inventions, but by reflection, resilience, and the subtle glow of a legacy he could feel, though the world around him had not yet fully recognized it. The pace of the city grew faster with each passing year, its lights brighter, its sounds louder, its appetite for progress relentless. Yet Tesla moved through it with the steady calm of a man who had understood long ago that true innovation begins in silence. The skyscrapers rising across Manhattan cast long shadows through the streets, but Tesla seemed to walk untouched by them, carrying within him a light that stretched far beyond the limits of steel and stone. During this period, Tesla's thoughts began drifting increasingly toward the deeper mysteries of nature, more than the mechanics of technology. He had spent a lifetime listening to the invisible currents that shaped the world, the hum of electricity, the resonance of the earth, the vibrations shared by all matter. Now, in the quiet of his later years, he sought not new inventions, but new understanding. He pondered questions that reached beyond engineering, the nature of consciousness, the origin of life, the threads connecting all beings. He believed that energy and thought were not separate forces, but reflections of the same cosmic rhythm. These ideas filled his notebooks, written with the gentle confidence of someone who no longer sought approval, only truth. Tesla's days became a blend of gentle habits, scientific musings, and long contemplative walks. Each morning he visited Bryant Park to feed the pigeons, moving with a grace that belied his age. He approached the small flock slowly, with the same respect he once gave to delicate machines. His favorite white pigeon always found him, fluttering down with the soft sound of wings that felt to Tesla like a whispered greeting. The bond between them deepened during these years, becoming one of the most tender relationships of his life. He spoke to her with a quiet fondness, as though she were the last pure connection he shared with the world. When she perched gently in his hands, he felt an unexpected sense of belonging. Though his life had narrowed in material ways, Tesla's imagination remained boundless. He continued to envision technologies that lay centuries ahead, energy beams that could power distant cities, machines capable of harnessing the sun's radiant warmth, aircraft that could move without propulsion through frequencies of vibration. He described systems of communication that would allow people across the globe to share information instantaneously, foreseeing the interconnected world that later generations would take for granted. These ideas were often dismissed by contemporaries who could not fathom the depth of his vision. Yet Tesla never let skepticism dim his curiosity. He believed the future would unfold through bold leaps of imagination, not cautious steps. In the calm rhythm of his days, Tesla sometimes received visitors, young engineers, journalists, or admirers, eager to understand the mind that had reshaped the world. He greeted them warmly, standing tall despite the weight of years. His voice, though softer, still carried the gentle musicality of his youth. When they asked him about his greatest achievements, Tesla rarely mentioned alternating current or the induction motor. Instead, he spoke about the importance of perseverance, the necessity of dreaming, and the beauty of observing nature with childlike wonder. He reminded them that invention was not merely a mechanical act, it was a spiritual one, requiring patience, compassion, and a willingness to see the unseen. Yet, for all his wisdom, Tesla carried quiet sorrows that lingered beneath his composed exterior. He thought often about the projects that had never reached completion. Wardenclyffe Tower, the global wireless system, and the clean energy networks he envisioned stretching across continents. These dreams had illuminated his path for decades, yet remained trapped in the realm of possibility. He knew now that they might never come to fruition. But rather than grieving their absence, Tesla treated them with the reverence of sacred ideas waiting for the right moment in history. He believed firmly that no idea was ever truly lost. Like seeds carried by wind, they would take root when the world was ready. Tesla's relationship with the scientific community during this time became increasingly quiet. Many of his peers respected him deeply, yet struggled to follow the boldness of his later theories. He found that conversations about everyday engineering bored him, while discussions about the deeper forces of nature often left others bewildered. And so Tesla retreated into the solitude he had always known best, finding comfort in the quiet hum of his thoughts. In this solitude he felt closest to the revelation that guided him his entire life, the understanding that everything in the universe was a vibration, a resonance, an echo of an unseen harmony shaping all things. His reflections on human nature became especially profound during these years. Tesla observed the world around him with a gentle, sometimes melancholic clarity. He noticed how people rushed through their lives, consumed by noise, ambition, and urgency. He wondered why humanity struggled so much to find balance. He believed that people suffered not because they lacked intelligence, but because they were disconnected from the deeper patterns of life. He hoped that future generations would learn to slow down, to listen, and to recognize the interconnectedness that defined existence. He felt that compassion, more than innovation, was the force that could transform the world. Despite his introspective nature, Tesla remained deeply empathetic toward the struggles of others. Hotel staff often found him offering kind words to those who seemed troubled, or quietly leaving small gifts of appreciation for those who helped him. He never boasted about his achievements, never demanded special treatment. He moved with humility that seemed out of place in a city defined by ambition. And yet, there was something undeniably regal about him, an elegance shaped not by wealth or status, but by grace of character. As the world stepped into a new decade, Tesla felt the passage of time more keenly. His step grew slower, his breath shorter, his nights more restless. Yet even as his body weakened, his mind remained luminous. He revisited memories of his youth with a softness that brought him comfort. He remembered the rivers of Smiljan, the fragrance of mountain air, the sound of storms that filled the sky with trembling light. He thought of the nights he spent staring at constellations, believing that the universe whispered secrets to those willing to listen. These memories wrapped around him like a warm blanket, reminding him that his life had been shaped not only by invention, but by wonder. One winter evening, Tesla sat near his window and watched snow fall softly across the city. The flakes drifted in slow spirals, each one catching the glow of street lamps below. The scene reminded him of the experiments he once performed with ionized air and radiant particles, nature and science dancing together in perfect harmony. As he watched, Tesla felt a rising certainty that his life, though filled with challenges and overlooked triumphs, had unfolded exactly as it was meant to. He felt gratitude for every moment, the victories, the setbacks, the discoveries, the solitude. It was all part of the resonance that had guided him since childhood. As Tesla continued his quiet routine, he became increasingly aware of the transition approaching, a gentle curtain slowly drawing closed. He did not fear this. To him, life was a continuous vibration, an energy that never truly ended but simply shifted into new forms. He believed that passing from the physical world was another form of resonance, a returning to the cosmic harmony he sensed in every storm, every current, every spark of imagination. His thoughts became more peaceful, as though he were preparing to reconnect with the vast, unseen force he had studied all his life. In his final reflections, Tesla understood something profound, that the value of a life is not measured by wealth, fame, or acclaim, but by the purity of one's intention. He had lived with sincerity, with passion, with a devotion to understanding the mysteries of the universe. He had sought to bring light to the world, not only through inventions, but through the quiet example of humility and compassion. And as he aged, he carried no regret, only a soft hope that future generations would carry forward the spirit of curiosity he had embraced so deeply. The city around him continued to glow with the brilliance of his inventions, unaware that the man who helped illuminate its nights now walked among its streets with fragile steps. Yet, even as Tesla faded from public consciousness, the world he shaped grew brighter. The currents he pioneered hummed in wires stretching across continents. His ideas pulsed in machines, in communication networks, in the very infrastructure of modern life. And though he remained humble, Tesla sensed that his legacy was already interwoven with the future in ways no one could fully grasp. And so, as Chapter 8 draws to a close, Tesla stands once more at the edge of possibility, not in grand laboratories or towering structures, but in the quiet sanctuary of his own heart. He remains a man shaped by wonder, guided by invisible forces, and devoted to the beauty of knowledge. Even in the soft twilight of his life, he continues to dream. Because for Nikola Tesla, dreaming was never an escape. It was the light that guided him. And even as the world changed around him, that light never faded. As Nikola Tesla entered the final decade of his life, the world around him had become almost unrecognizable compared to the one he first stepped into as a young immigrant. The skyline of New York now shimmered with towering structures of steel and glowing lights, each building humming with currents he had once visualized only in the quiet of his mind. The streets overflowed with automobiles, guided by sparks of ignition, and radios filled the air with invisible waves carrying music, news, and voices across continents. Everywhere he looked, Tesla saw pieces of his work woven into the fabric of daily life. Yet he walked through this illuminated world quietly, almost like a ghost passing through the city he helped create. Tesla felt this era differently than earlier chapters of his life. There was a softness to the way time moved now, a gentler rhythm shaped not by ambition, but by acceptance. He no longer pursued the grand projects that had once driven him. No new towers rising into the sky, no large laboratories filled with coils and glowing tubes. Instead, he turned inward, reflecting on the immense journey he had walked. His days became a blend of serene rituals, peaceful contemplation, and subtle observations of the world transitioning into a new age. In these moments of quiet reflection, Tesla found a depth of clarity he had never experienced during his earlier years of feverish invention. He continued to reside in the New Yorker hotel, occupying a simple room that overlooked a city alive with the pulse of modernity. From his window, Tesla often watched the flow of traffic, the shifting patterns of lights, and the distant glow of neon signs. These sights carried a beauty that resonated deeply with him, not because they represented progress, but because they represented connection. Millions of people moving, working, dreaming, and living within systems powered by principles he had uncovered long ago. Even if few recognized his contributions, Tesla felt comfort in knowing that his efforts had helped build a foundation for countless lives. Tesla's daily routine settled into a gentle, familiar pattern. Each morning, he left the hotel early, stepping into the crisp air with deliberate, measured steps. He walked to the park, where pigeons gathered, with an intuitive sense of his arrival. The white pigeon he cherished most would glide down from the sky, landing gracefully near him. Tesla fed her carefully prepared seeds, speaking to her in soft tones that carried warmth rarely seen in his interactions with humans. She listened calmly, tilting her head as though she understood every word. In these quiet moments, Tesla felt a sense of companionship that softened the loneliness he often carried. After tending to the pigeons, Tesla returned to his room to continue writing in the notebooks that would eventually fill drawers and shelves. He wrote about resonance, cosmic energy, the geometry of the universe, and the interconnectedness of all living things. He believed that consciousness was not confined to the human mind, but was a vibration shared across the cosmos. He theorized about particles of light carrying vast intelligence, about the Earth as a giant conductor of energy, and about future machines capable of manipulating frequencies to heal, communicate, and unify. These ideas were not the works of a man drifting into fantasy. They were the natural evolution of a mind that had always sensed the invisible forces shaping reality. Yet, despite the richness of his thoughts, Tesla often felt a quiet ache when he looked at the world he once hoped to change even more profoundly. Wardenclyffe Tower remained a memory, fading but never forgotten. The dream of limitless wireless power still glowed softly within him, like embers that refused to die out. There were nights when Tesla closed his eyes and imagined the tower complete, its copper dome resonating with the earth, sending energy across oceans and mountains, connecting humanity in a network of invisible harmony. He knew the project had been ahead of its time, but he also believed the future would rediscover its potential. That belief brought him comfort. Tesla's interactions with the outside world grew fewer as time passed. Journalists occasionally sought him out, intrigued by the mysterious inventor who had retreated from public life. When they entered his room, they found a man still dressed elegantly, his posture straight, his manners impeccable. He answered their questions with thoughtful precision, never revealing bitterness despite the hardships he endured. He spoke about the future with quiet optimism, predicting that humanity would one day tap into the deeper energies of nature and unlock technologies that would seem miraculous. His voice carried the same gentle conviction it always had, even as the world considered him an aging relic of the past. Occasionally, young engineers or admirers managed to meet Tesla, drawn by curiosity and reverence. They asked him about alternating current, his inventions, and the bold ideas that made him legendary. Tesla rarely spoke of his past successes. Instead, he encouraged them to observe nature closely, to trust intuition, and to pursue ideas that felt impossible. He told them that imagination was the gateway to discovery and that innovation required courage as much as intellect. The young visitors left feeling uplifted, carrying with them the presence of a man who remained a beacon of gentle wisdom. Despite his enduring brilliance, Tesla struggled financially. He paid hotel bills irregularly, often negotiating reduced rates out of necessity. The hotel staff, aware of his situation and admiring his character, treated him with kindness. They ensured he had meals, maintained his room with care, and checked on him quietly. Tesla thanked them often, always bowing his head slightly as he expressed gratitude. Even in hardship, he maintained an elegance that seemed to come from within, a dignity that was never diminished by circumstance. As the world moved into the early 1940s, global tensions deepened. Wars spread across continents, and nations raced to develop new forms of technology for defense. Tesla observed these events with a somber heart. He believed deeply that science should serve peace, not conflict. Years earlier, he had proposed the idea of a defensive beam that could protect nations and render warfare obsolete. But he never intended it as a weapon, only as a safeguard to prevent destruction. Now, as nations sought destructive power rather than harmony, Tesla felt a quiet sadness. The world was not yet aligned with the vision of unity he held so dearly. As Tesla's physical health continued to decline, he spent more time resting, often lying in bed with eyes half closed, listening to the faint hum of the city below. His mind, however, remained vibrant. He drifted through memories, his childhood in Smiljan, storms shaking the sky, his university days filled with revelations, the triumphs of alternating current, the glow of his laboratory lit by wireless lamps, the tower rising at Wardenclyffe, the pigeons circling in the twilight. These memories formed a tapestry of light, each thread representing a moment of insight, passion, or quiet wonder. Tesla held these memories with gentle appreciation, knowing they shaped a life that had been extraordinary in ways the world would eventually recognize. He also thought often of his family, his mother's unwavering intuition, his father's strength, his siblings' laughter. Their faces came to him in moments of stillness, like soft echoes carried from distant mountains. Tesla felt grateful for them, for the foundations they gave him, for the courage to dream beyond the boundaries of anything they could have imagined. He felt connected to them still, believing that death did not sever bonds, but transformed them into something deeper. As the new year approached, Tesla grew more fragile. He spent much of his time lying quietly in bed, drifting between sleep and thought. The hotel staff checked on him gently, knocking softly before entering his room. They cared for him with respect, sensing that they were witnessing the twilight of a remarkable life. Tesla always greeted them with kindness, even in moments of exhaustion. He thanked them for their efforts, assuring them he was comfortable. In truth, he felt a peaceful acceptance settling over him. He sensed that his journey was nearing its natural end. In the years following Nikola Tesla's passing, the world slowly began to realize the magnitude of the light that had slipped quietly from its grasp. At first, his absence went largely unnoticed, overshadowed by global conflict and political change. But as decades unfolded, the inventions he once crafted in solitude became the foundation upon which new ages of technology were built. This chapter of Tesla's story is not defined by the steps he took, but by the echoes he left behind, echoes that grew louder with time, resonating through generations of dreamers, scientists, and ordinary people whose lives were touched by the power of ideas. In the quiet after his passing, the world began to awaken to the depth of what it had inherited. As the 20th century progressed, electricity transformed from a luxury into a universal necessity. Homes glowed with warm lights, factories thrummed with motors, hospitals powered life-saving machines, and cities pulsed with an energy that flowed invisibly through vast networks. Everywhere electricity traveled, Tesla's fingerprints remained imprinted in the currents. His alternating current system, once dismissed as dangerous, now silently energized continents. It hummed beneath the floors of buildings, stretched across mountains, and illuminated night skies with the soft glow of progress. The world lived within a symphony of power he had composed long before it understood its music. Those who studied electrical engineering began to trace the origins of their tools, devices, and systems. They found Tesla's name appearing repeatedly, sometimes prominently, sometimes hidden between lines, sometimes overshadowed by others who had built upon his discoveries. Yet the deeper they looked, the clearer it became that modern energy systems carried the essence of a mind that once walked alone through dimly lit laboratories. Tesla's ideas became part of the invisible foundation of modern life, much like the currents themselves, felt everywhere, seen nowhere. His legacy at last began to stir. Interest in Tesla's life grew slowly but steadily. Journalists revisited archived interviews, scholars combed through his patents, and young scientists discovered diagrams that seemed to predict technologies far ahead of their time. People were astonished to find descriptions of wireless communication, drones, renewable energy concepts, radar-like detection systems, and remote-controlled machines, all written long before the world considered such possibilities realistic. Tesla, once considered eccentric for dreaming too far ahead, was gradually recognized as a prophet of the modern age. The world began to read his words with new eyes, hearing in them the quiet hum of a future he had glimpsed long before anyone else. As recognition spread, so did curiosity about the man himself. Stories of his solitary walks, his gentle nature, and his deep connection to animals painted a portrait of someone both brilliant and profoundly human. People learned of the hardships he endured, the sacrifices he made, and the dreams he refused to abandon even when the world turned away. They discovered that behind the coils, motors, and equations was a man of immense sensitivity, someone who believed deeply in the harmony of the universe, someone who sought not wealth but understanding. This blend of genius and softness captivated hearts as much as minds. In time, Tesla became a symbol of a different kind of intelligence, one rooted not in competition, but in curiosity, not in ambition, but in wonder. Aspiring inventors found inspiration in his resilience, drawn to the idea that a single individual, working quietly and sincerely, could reshape the world. Artists saw poetry in his experiments, writers found stories in his solitude, and scientists saw a guiding star in his theories. Tesla's influence transcended fields, weaving into culture, imagination, and the collective story of human achievement. His name became associated with possibility itself. Meanwhile, the technological world continued to expand in ways Tesla had long predicted. Wireless communication blossomed, connecting continents within moments. Towers rose across landscapes, carrying signals that flowed effortlessly through the air. Remote controls guided machines, aircraft, and instruments with smooth precision. The foundations of renewable energy emerged, hinting at systems that drew power from natural sources. Each breakthrough felt like a faint whisper of Tesla's earlier visions coming to life. People began to say that Tesla had not merely predicted the future, he had drawn its blueprint. As humanity entered the digital age, the rediscovery of Nikola Tesla accelerated. His patents, once forgotten in dusty archives, now became essential reading for modern engineers. His notes, filled with intricate drawings and unfinished ideas, were studied with reverence. Documentaries, books, and academic papers resurfaced the scope of his contributions. What had once been overlooked now appeared extraordinary. The world realized that Tesla had not simply invented machines. He had attempted to reshape the very relationship between humanity and energy, between technology and nature. Governments and organizations began to honor him at last. Statues were erected, awards were named after him, and institutions preserved his artifacts as treasures. His childhood home in Smiljan was reconstructed as a memorial, allowing visitors to walk the same paths he once walked as a boy beneath the glow of storms. The Wardenclyffe site, once abandoned and quietly decaying, became a symbol of unrealized potential, later restored with efforts from people who believed Tesla's dreams still mattered. In these gestures, the world offered a belated but heartfelt acknowledgment of the man whose ideas lit its nights. Yet even as admiration grew, Tesla's story remained tinged with gentle melancholy. People wondered how differently his life might have unfolded had he received support during his most visionary years. They imagined a world where wireless power illuminated the globe, where energy flowed freely without wires or limits, where nations connected through shared technological harmony rather than lines drawn on maps. They sensed that Tesla's dreams had not failed. They had simply been delayed. And within this realization, a new generation began to ask whether his visions might still hold answers to the challenges of the present. Researchers revisited his concepts of wireless energy transmission, probing the physics he once explored with coils and resonant circuits. They examined his ideas about natural frequencies, electromagnetic fields, and the Earth's ability to conduct energy. Some considered these ideas impractical. Others saw them as seeds that had yet to bloom. Regardless, Tesla's theories sparked curiosity and dialogue, encouraging scientists to expand the boundaries of their imagination. The spirit of exploration he championed persisted, shaping new frontiers in technology. In the growing awareness of Tesla's importance, people also reflected on the humility with which he lived. His quiet demeanor, his preference for solitude, and his profound sensitivity stood in contrast to the loud, competitive world of invention. Tesla became a symbol not only of genius, but of gentleness, proof that brilliance does not need to shout to be heard. This side of Tesla's legacy inspired artists, thinkers, and everyday individuals who saw in him a reminder that greatness can coexist with kindness and vulnerability. During these decades of posthumous recognition, Tesla's writings about humanity's future resonated with new significance. He believed that people would one day transcend conflict through understanding, that nations would become interconnected, and that energy would be the key to global cooperation. Though the world had far to go, his hopes echoed through movements for peace, renewable energy, and technological ethics. His voice, long quieted, began to echo again, not in the form of sound waves, but in ideals carried forward by those who believed in a more harmonious future. As the 20th century closed and the 21st began, Tesla's name rose to iconic status. The emerging world of electric vehicles, renewable energy, and wireless devices seemed to unfold from his earliest visions. His life became a touchstone for innovators striving to create technologies that served humanity rather than profit. His face appeared in museums, his quotes shared across classrooms and boardrooms, his inventions reconstructed in laboratories for new generations to study. Even those who had never heard his name before now found pieces of him in the devices they used every day. And yet, perhaps the most profound part of Tesla's legacy was not the inventions themselves, but the courage he embodied, the courage to pursue ideas others considered impossible. He showed the world that imagination is not a luxury, but a force that shapes reality. He proved that intuition can guide discovery, that compassion can accompany brilliance, and that a single individual, working quietly, can alter the course of history. Tesla's legacy became a living reminder that progress is born not only from logic, but from a deep and daring wonder. As Chapter 10 draws to a close, the light of Tesla's legacy stretches far beyond the boundaries of his lifetime. His ideas continue to ripple through science, art, and society. His presence, once overlooked, now illuminates the world he left behind. Every spark of electricity, every wireless signal, every hum of a motor carries a fragment of his vision. And though he once walked through New York as a solitary figure, today he walks through time itself, guiding dreamers, inspiring inventors, and reminding humanity of the boundless power of the mind. Nikola Tesla, once a quiet man feeding pigeons in a park, now stands as one of history's brightest lights, his legacy glowing softly across the world, a testament to a life lived not for recognition, but for the beauty of discovery. In the decades after Nikola Tesla's passing, the world moved steadily into a future shaped by currents he once imagined in the quiet solitude of his laboratories. Though he no longer walked the streets of New York, traces of his presence shimmered everywhere. hidden in the glow of city lights, the hum of power lines, and the invisible waves carrying voices and signals across the globe. Humanity advanced step by step, often unaware that each step rested on foundations laid by a man who spent his life listening to forces others could not see. And as time continued its slow, unhurried march, Tesla's legacy grew not only in science, but in the collective imagination of the world. In the years that followed, scholars and historians undertook the painstaking work of preserving Tesla's writings. His notebooks, once scattered across hotel rooms and tucked into drawers, were carefully catalogued, studied, and stored. Each page revealed the contours of a mind that vibrated at a frequency far beyond ordinary thought. Diagrams of coils, notes on resonance, sketches of energy systems, every line carried the signature of a man who saw the universe not as a collection of objects, but as a symphony of vibrating patterns. Researchers were astonished by the breadth of his ideas, many of them written decades before the world possessed the technology to understand them. Slowly, the public began rediscovering Tesla's story, and with it came a sense of awe. People learned of the hardships he faced, the sacrifices he made, and the unwavering gentleness he carried through it all. His life, once overshadowed by the noise of more celebrated figures, now unfolded like a quiet epic. Teachers shared his biography with students, filmmakers created documentaries about his work, and writers found inspiration in the poetic contrast between his brilliance and his solitude. Tesla became more than an inventor. He became a symbol of perseverance, a reminder that great minds often walk paths the world does not yet understand. Yet, as admiration grew, so did a movement to reclaim Tesla's forgotten achievements. Engineers revisited his theories on wireless power, exploring whether modern materials and technologies could finally bring his vision to life. Laboratories conducted experiments on resonance, attempting to replicate the effects Tesla once demonstrated with simple coils and glass bulbs. Researchers studied his ideas about harnessing the Earth's natural frequencies, hoping to uncover insights that might enhance renewable energy systems. Though the results varied, the pursuit itself honored Tesla's belief that imagination was humanity's greatest tool. Meanwhile, the world entered an age defined by connectivity, a network of information flowing through the air, reminiscent of the invisible forces Tesla once discussed. Wireless communication evolved from simple radio waves into complex digital systems. Signals traveled across oceans in milliseconds, connecting people separated by continents. The Internet emerged, transforming the way humanity lived, learned, and shared ideas. Many saw this new era as a quiet fulfillment of Tesla's dream, a global web of communication powered not by wires, but by the boundless space above. As technology advanced, Tesla's work took on new meaning. His early experiments with remote control became precursors to drones, automated systems, and robotic devices used in medicine, industry, and exploration. His fascination with high-frequency currents laid the groundwork for medical treatments, advanced lighting, and imaging technologies. Even his ideas, once thought fantastical, such as energy beams and wireless transmission through the Earth, captured the attention of researchers seeking solutions to modern challenges. It became clear that Tesla had not lived ahead of his time, he had lived ahead of ours. In this era of rediscovery, tributes to Tesla began to appear around the world. Statues were erected, libraries were named after him, and museums dedicated entire wings to his work. People traveled from distant countries to walk the grounds of his childhood home, imagining the young boy gazing at lightning storms with wonder. At Wardenclyffe, volunteers and scientists collaborated to restore the site, turning it into a center for education and innovation. Even in death, Tesla continued to inspire exploration. His unfinished tower became not a symbol of failure, but of possibility, a reminder that great dreams often surpass the limitations of a single lifetime. Yet Tesla's influence extended beyond science and technology. Artists, musicians, and philosophers found inspiration in his life story. They saw in him the embodiment of creativity unrestrained by convention, a person who dared to follow intuition even when it led him into solitude. His writings on energy and interconnectedness resonated with thinkers exploring the deeper nature of existence. Spiritual seekers found meaning in his belief that all life was bound together by invisible forces. In a world often driven by speed and competition, Tesla's gentle presence became a reminder of the enduring power of contemplation. As society moved deeper into a digital age, Tesla's story gained renewed relevance. The world grappled with issues of energy sustainability, global communication, and technological ethics, all areas touched by his early work. Engineers sought ways to create cleaner power systems, echoing Tesla's dream of tapping into the natural rhythms of the Earth. Innovators explored methods for wireless charging, drawing inspiration from the coils he built by hand. Philosophers debated the balance between technology and humanity, recalling Tesla's warning that invention must always serve compassion rather than control. Amid this resurgence, Tesla's personal qualities captured people's hearts as much as his brilliance. His kindness, humility, and sensitivity became as revered as his inventions. The stories of his compassion for animals, his quiet gratitude toward hotel workers, and his refusal to pursue wealth at the expense of integrity revealed a man defined not by ambition, but by sincerity. These qualities made him a rare figure in the heroic narratives of science, someone whose greatness rested as much in his character as in his intellect. Meanwhile, the scientific community continued to uncover profound connections between Tesla's theories and modern discoveries. As researchers learned more about quantum physics, electromagnetism, and wave phenomena, they recognized patterns Tesla had intuitively grasped long before the mathematics existed to describe them. His belief in the vibrational nature of the universe found echoes in emerging hypotheses about quantum fields and energy states. His ideas about wireless power aligned with modern wireless charging and electromagnetic induction systems. Even his thoughts on the interconnectedness of consciousness found resonance in interdisciplinary studies exploring the nature of awareness. In the midst of this unfolding recognition, Tesla became a timeless figure, a bridge between past and future, between classical invention and boundless imagination. Students invoked his name as inspiration for their studies. Engineers used his patents to chart new paths. Filmmakers portrayed him as a mysterious sage of electricity. Authors described him as a visionary guided by whispers of the cosmos. His spirit, once quiet and unnoticed, now pulsed through culture with the same elegance as the currents he devoted his life to mastering. And yet, beyond the tributes and accolades, the essence of Tesla's legacy rested in something far more profound: the enduring belief that the world is full of hidden wonders waiting to be discovered. Tesla taught that curiosity is sacred, that imagination is powerful, and that the pursuit of understanding is one of humanity's greatest callings. He showed that true greatness is born not from recognition, but from the courage to follow one's inner light. In every classroom where a student picks up a coil, in every lab where a scientist tunes a frequency, in every workshop where an inventor dares to dream, Tesla's presence lingers. His legacy flows through the wires of modern civilization, but also through the minds of those who continue to ask questions, to listen, to wonder. He remains a quiet companion to all who look beyond the visible world. As this chapter draws to a close, Tesla stands not as a figure of the past, but as a guiding star in the constellation of human progress. His life reminds us that discovery is a gentle, persistent unfolding, a dance between curiosity and courage. And though he left the world quietly, his light continues to glow, illuminating paths yet unseen, dreams yet unimagined, and possibilities waiting like distant sparks to be awakened. Nikola Tesla's story does not end with his passing. It continues every time the world reaches for the future. As the decades continued their slow drift forward, Nikola Tesla's presence grew softer, more distant, yet strangely more luminous than ever before. Though the man himself had long since passed, his essence lived on in the quiet hum of the world, a subtle vibration woven into the pulse of modern civilization. Technology advanced in waves that rose and broke like tides against the shores of human imagination, and with each new innovation, echoes of Tesla's vision resurfaced. It was as though the ideas he once carried alone had dissolved into the collective consciousness, guiding humanity from beyond the horizon. Time, which once obscured his brilliance, now revealed it with clarity. In this new century, engineers and thinkers revisited Tesla's patents with renewed reverence. They studied the curves of his diagrams, the precision of his handwriting, the elegance of his solutions. They saw in his work not merely mechanical ingenuity, but philosophical insight, an understanding that energy was not just a resource, but a living force connecting all things. His writings, once overlooked, became treasures. Students pored over his journals, tracing the path of his imagination as though following a map into unknown territory. They recognized the courage it took to dream without restraint, to believe in ideas so expansive they often exceeded the world's ability to grasp them. Tesla's absence became a presence of its own. Museums displayed his inventions behind glass, but it was the unseen, his influence, his ideas, his spirit, that resonated most deeply. People spoke of him with quiet admiration, calling him a visionary, a dreamer, a gentle soul who gave the world more than it ever gave him in return. His image, slender, elegant, thoughtful, became iconic. His story, once a whisper, now echoed through classrooms, laboratories, and homes around the world. And as new generations learned of his struggles and triumphs, Tesla emerged not just as an inventor, but as a symbol of possibility itself. In universities, professors referenced Tesla when encouraging students to question the boundaries of what seemed achievable. In workshops, innovators placed his portrait on walls as a silent reminder that great ideas are born from curiosity, not conformity. Even in popular culture, Tesla's name took on new life, appearing in books, films, and discussions about the nature of innovation. He became a figure who transcended time, a bridge between science and philosophy, between history and destiny. And though he belonged to the past, his influence felt timeless. As humanity approached an era filled with global communication networks, autonomous machines, and clean energy revolutions, Tesla's words from decades earlier resurfaced like prophecy. He had spoken of a world united by technology, where people could communicate instantly across oceans, where energy flowed freely, where machines worked harmoniously with nature. In his dreams, he saw humanity connected not only through wires, but through intentions, ideas resonating across the globe as easily as electrical signals. He believed that when people understood their interconnectedness, conflict would fade, replaced by collaboration and shared purpose. Though the world had not yet reached that harmony, it moved closer with each passing year. Scientists researched sustainable power sources, echoing his belief that nature held the answers to humanity's greatest challenges. Innovators explored wireless power transmission, captivated by the idea Tesla once demonstrated with glowing lamps held gently in his hands. Cities adopted renewable energy systems, finding balance between progress and preservation. And through these advancements, Tesla's presence lingered, an invisible guide leading humanity toward the future he once envisioned. But Tesla's legacy extended beyond technology. His life became a lesson in resilience, humility, and the courage to dream. He showed that even in the face of rejection, one must continue walking toward the light within. He taught that solitude can be a sanctuary for creativity and that true greatness is often quiet, gentle, and unassuming. People found inspiration not only in his inventions, but in his spirit, the spirit of someone who loved deeply, believed fiercely, and gave selflessly. In memorials and museums, visitors often paused longest at the exhibits that describe Tesla's personal life. The small hotel room where he lived his final years, the gentle pigeons he cared for, the notebooks filled with dreams that exceeded the reach of his time. These details revealed the humanity behind the genius. They showed a man who felt deeply, who cherished life in its simplest forms, who carried compassion alongside brilliance. And in these intimate glimpses, people discovered a source of comfort, a reminder that intelligence need not harden the heart. As the century unfolded, Tesla's influence reached into the lives of those who never touched a coil or studied an equation. Philosophers admired his understanding of interconnectedness. Artists embraced his love for light and resonance. Musicians drew inspiration from his belief in vibration as the core of existence. Even those who knew little of science found in Tesla a symbol of hope, proof that even in a world marked by struggle, a single individual could illuminate the darkness. Over time, Wardenclyffe Tower transformed from an abandoned skeleton into a monument of unfulfilled dreams. Visitors walked the grounds with a sense of reverence, imagining the currents that might have pulsed through the structure had fate unfolded differently. The tower's remains became a reminder that innovation requires not only genius, but support, understanding, and belief. And yet, its unfinished form carried beauty. A testament to the ambition of a man who looked at the world, not as it was, but as it could be. In this final chapter of Tesla's story, the world reflects on the harmony of his life, the way he bridged the tangible and the invisible, the mechanical and the spiritual, the scientific and the poetic. His life was not defined by wealth, nor by accolades, nor by outward success. It was defined by wonder, by the willingness to follow imagination into uncharted territories, by the courage to believe that the universe speaks to those who listen. As centuries turned, Tesla became more than an inventor. He became an idea that lived in the mind of anyone who dared to dream beyond the boundaries of convention. His name became synonymous with curiosity, innovation, and gentle brilliance. His legacy became a quiet lantern carried through time, lighting the way for those who walked after him. Humanity, with all its complexities, eventually understood what Tesla tried to teach, that progress is not merely the accumulation of machines, but the awakening of understanding, that energy is not merely a resource, but a language, that invention is not merely creation, but communion with the invisible forces that shape existence. And so, the world embraced Tesla not only as a figure of scientific history, but as a companion in its ongoing search for meaning. As we reach the end of this journey through the life of Nikola Tesla, take a moment to sit with the quiet glow of everything he left behind. His story is not one of perfect triumph, nor constant praise, nor uninterrupted success. It is the story of a soul who saw the universe with uncommon clarity, a man who walked gently through the world while carrying storms of brilliance beneath the surface. Tesla's legacy hums in every illuminated room, every humming motor, every wireless signal guiding our daily lives. Yet his true gift was far deeper. He showed us how to listen to nature, to listen to intuition, to listen to the quiet pull of dreams that whisper to us in the stillness of night. If Tesla's life teaches us anything, it is that imagination is a form of light, and once lit, it never truly fades. It echoes through generations, touching minds that were never born when the spark was first created. Tesla's light continues to travel long after his footsteps vanished from the earth. And now, as this final chapter closes, imagine the soft glow of a single lamp, powered by currents he once envisioned, shining calmly in the dark. That light is his legacy. A legacy that continues to brighten the world, one idea, one dream, one quiet spark at a time. Thank you for walking through his story. His light now belongs to you, too.